The night is still. The earth exhales softly, like an ancient creature resting after eons of labor. Across valleys, deserts, and jungles, the silhouettes of forgotten temples stand like shadows carved into the horizon. They rise quietly, their stones pressed together by hands that have long since turned to dust, their towers and altars stretching toward the stars with unwavering patience. They are silent guardians, even now, when the prayers that once echoed through their halls have faded into history, when the flames of offerings no longer flicker on their altars. These temples still breathe. They breathe with the rhythm of the cosmos. They wait in stillness beneath the endless night sky, watching, listening, remembering. Some stand in ruins, columns broken, walls crumbled, their edges softened by centuries of rain and wind. Others remain hidden, swallowed by vines and forests, as if nature herself tried to protect them from being forgotten. Yet all of them, whether standing proud or lying half buried in soil, keep their eyes fixed on the heavens. They do not sleep. They do not close their gaze. For as long as the stars burn above, the temples remember. Whispers in stone imagine walking through one of these forgotten sanctuaries beneath the moon. The silence is not empty. It is alive. The stones seem to hum with memory, as if every block carries a fragment of the voices that once filled these places. You can almost hear the low chants of priests, the crackle of torches, the rustle of robes, and the soft murmur of prayers. Rising like smoke into the dark, these temples were not only places of worship, they were mirrors of the sky, carved replicas of the heavens, every stone placed with care, every angle measured against the journey of the sun and the dance of the stars. To stand within them was to stand inside a living map of the cosmos. The builders were not only architects, they were dreamers, astronomers, and poets of stone. They believed the heavens spoke, and they listened carefully, shaping their temples so that the universe itself could flow into human life. And so, when night falls, and the rest of the world sleeps, the temples remain awake, holding their ancient vigil, the first spark of all long before calendars or compasses, long before maps or telescopes. Humanity lifted its gaze upward. The first spark of awe came not from tools, but from silence, from lying on the cool earth at night and seeing the stars blaze across the sky. Imagine an ancient wanderer, thousands of years ago, staring into the heavens. The night would have been darker than we can imagine today, free of cities and artificial lights. The sky stretched wide, endless, and alive with fire. The stars shifted with seasons. Some constellations rose faithfully at certain times of year. The sun returned in its rhythm. The moon swelled and waned like a great beating heart. To early humans, this was not just beauty, it was survival. The stars told them when to plant, when to harvest, when to travel, when to stay. The sky was their first teacher. And so, when villages became cities, and cities birthed temples, it was only natural that these temples would not face inward toward themselves, but outward toward the cosmos. They became stones lifted toward the heavens, monuments designed to watch, to measure, to remember. Temples as living beings. Ancient people did not see temples as mere buildings. To them, these structures were alive. They were beings with purpose. bridges between earth and sky, flesh and spirit, human and divine, the great pyramids, the ziggurats, the stone circles, the sanctuaries of every land. All were carved with the belief that stone could hold eternity, each one a vessel for prayers, but also for knowledge, carefully aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and the invisible pathways of the stars. When you stood in such a temple at night, you did not just feel the presence of stone. You felt the breath of the cosmos. The temple walls framed constellations, as if the sky itself had been invited inside. It is this sensation that lingers still, even in ruins. The silence of forgotten temples is not emptiness. It is the stillness of something vast and watching, something that waits patiently for us to notice again. Moonlight on forgotten altars. Picture yourself stepping through broken columns, the moonlight spilling across ancient carvings. Each symbol etched into the walls glimmers faintly, its meaning perhaps lost to time, but its presence undeniable. A breeze stirs, carrying scents of earth and stone, and suddenly you feel as though you are not alone. The stars above shine exactly as they did thousands of years ago. The same Orion, the same Pleiades, the same North Star. They have not changed, though generations of humans have come and gone. And so, in a way, these temples are not forgotten. They are remembered by the stars themselves. The altars where offerings once burned may now be cold, but in the silver wash of moonlight, they seem alive again. Perhaps you can imagine figures gathered there, priests raising their hands, villagers whispering hopes, a community breathing in unison under the sky. Their voices may be gone, but the stones remember their rhythm, the dream that never died. What connects us to these silent guardians is not only history, but longing. The same longing that first lifted human eyes toward the stars still flickers within us. Even in our modern lives, filled with lights and machines, there remains a part of us that grows quiet when we see the night sky. That feels small, yet infinite, when we glimpse the stars. The forgotten temples remind us of this. They are proof that we have always sought meaning beyond ourselves, always looked upward, always believed that the universe was not indifferent, but alive and listening. As you close your eyes tonight, think of these temples not as ruins, but as companions. They are still watching the skies while we sleep, still holding the thread between humanity and the cosmos. Their silence is not absence, it is presence. Their stillness is not death, it is endurance. And so, as we begin this journey into the story of forgotten temples, let us remember, we are not alone under the stars. We never have been. The guardians still stand. They are waiting. They are watching. And tonight, they dream with us. The temple is silent, but silence does not mean emptiness. Silence, in places such as these, is thick, layered, and alive. It is not the absence of sound, but the presence of memory. Every stone seems to hold an echo, as if voices from long ago still cling to the walls, faint but unyielding. Close your eyes, and you might hear them. The shuffle of sandaled feet against stone floors, the crackle of firelight, the murmur of chants rising and falling like the tide. Somewhere, a drum beats softly, steady as a heartbeat. The air is dense with incense and smoke. It curls and lifts, carrying prayers upward, disappearing into the dark where sky and temple meet. The temple is a vessel, but not for offerings alone. It is a vessel for voices, for stories, for human longing, and though centuries may pass, though storms may wear down the walls, and trees may grow where altars once stood, those voices do not vanish. They are absorbed, they linger, they whisper still, stones that speak. Every stone, it seems, has something to say. The walls are carved not just with symbols, but with intention. Images of gods with watchful eyes, spirals that mirror the heavens, lines etched at angles so precise that they frame the rising sun or the arc of the moon. None of this was by accident. When the builders placed these stones, they were embedding their beliefs, their knowledge, their very breath into them. They expected these places to last, to outlive them, to endure beyond memory, and so they built not for a generation, but for eternity. This is why the temples feel alive. They were never meant to be mute monuments. They were meant to speak, through stone, through shadow, through alignment with the heavens. Even now, standing among their ruins, you can feel their voice humming faintly, like a song half heard through layers of time. The human heart in stone, it is easy to think of temples as impersonal, vast structures built for gods and rulers. But if you linger long enough, you realize something else. These temples are deeply human. They hold the fingerprints of those who built them, the hopes of those who prayed within them, the grief and joy of countless lives. A stone may weigh tons, but it was carried by human hands. A carving may appear divine, but it was etched by a human hand that trembled, grew tired, and pressed on anyway. Each mark, each cut, is a trace of life. To walk in a forgotten temple is to walk inside a human heart made solid. These walls are the crystallization of desire, the desire to reach the divine, to leave something permanent, to resist the passing of time. And though the people are gone, their yearning remains. That yearning is what you feel when the stones whisper. The murmur of rituals. Imagine the temple at night, thousands of years ago. The torches burn low, shadows dance along the carvings. The air is warm with incense, heavy with song. The rituals were not small acts. They were performances of cosmic scale. To light a flame here was to mirror the sun. To pour water, there was to echo the rivers of creation. To place an offering on the altar was to align with the stars themselves. The people who gathered in these temples believed they were not just speaking to gods, but participating in the very fabric of the universe. Their words, their songs, their movements, they were harmonies in a vast cosmic symphony. And the stones listened. That is why, even now, you can almost hear it. The faint hum, the murmur of chants that never quite fade. As if the rituals imprinted themselves into the very walls. Forgotten, but not lost time, of course, is relentless. Wars came and went. Empires rose and fell. Temples were abandoned, buried, broken. Some were looted, others repurposed, others left to crumble beneath vines and soil. And yet not all was lost. For though the names of the priests may be forgotten, though the details of the prayers may fade, the echo remains. The stones are keepers of memory, and memory is stubborn. When explorers stumble upon a temple hidden in the jungle, or archaeologists brush dust off ancient carvings, it feels less like discovery and more like reunion. The temple was never truly gone. It was simply waiting, whispering in silence until we listened again. A dialogue across time. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about these echoes is that they do not belong only to the past. They speak to us here and now. When you stand among them, you cannot help but feel the same awe that the ancients must have felt. You cannot help but lift your gaze skyward, tracing the same stars they once followed. In this way, the echoes become a dialogue. They remind us that we are not separate from history, but woven into it. That the longing of those who built the temples is the same longing we carry. The yearning for meaning, for connection, for permanence in a fleeting world. The stones whisper, not only of what once was, but of what still is, sleeping, yet awake at night, when the world grows quiet. The whispers of the temples seem louder. It is as if they awaken when the noise of modern life dies down. Beneath the stars, in the hush of darkness, they return to themselves. You can imagine the stones sighing, stretching, remembering. The carvings bathed in moonlight glow faintly as if alive. The air thickens with presence. Even if you are alone, you feel surrounded, not by bodies, but by echoes, by presences that are both near and distant. It is not frightening. It is soothing, like being watched over by something vast and timeless. The temples are guardians not of gods alone, but of humanity itself. They cradle our shared story, holding it safe until we are ready to listen. The echo that becomes a dream. And so, as we drift deeper into this journey, let the temples speak. Let their whispers wrap around you like a blanket. Imagine their stones warm beneath your fingertips, their carvings alive with memory, their silence full of voices. The echoes are not noise. They are lullabies. They sing of creation, of longing, of sky and stone bound together. They remind us that even in forgetting, we are remembered. Even in silence, we are heard. Close your eyes and hear the murmur of chants. See the torches flicker. Smell the smoke curling upward. Feel the floor beneath your feet vibrate faintly with the rhythm of drums. Long stilled, the temple is silent, and yet it sings. Before stone temples rose into the skies, before pyramids pierced the horizon, and ziggurats towered above plains, there were fires. Small fires, fragile fires, flames that flickered in caves, on riverbanks, and atop hills where early humans gathered beneath the stars. The fire was the first temple. It was warmth, light, and protection. It was mystery, alive, moving, consuming, and yet giving. Around these flames, people sat in circles, their faces painted by shadow and glow, their voices whispering into the night, and above them stretched the heavens, infinite, distant, burning with countless stars that mirrored the flames below. Humanity, gazing upward, must have wondered, are those fires too? Are the heavens alight with eternal fire? Do the gods tend them as we tend ours? This was the first worship. Fire beneath the stars, human hearts reaching upward, the gathering picture. A small group thousands of years ago, huddled on a windswept hill. They are wrapped in furs, their hair long and tangled, their tools made of stone and bone. The night is cold, but the fire between them dances high. Sparks leap into the air, vanishing into the dark, as if joining the constellations above. A child stares into the flames with wide eyes. An elder raises a hand, pointing at the sky. "That one," he might say, tracing Orion's belt with his finger. It returns each winter. It watches over the hunt. The child listens, her gaze shifting from fire to stars, seeing in both the same rhythm, the same mystery. They do not yet have temples of stone. Their temple is the earth beneath them, the fire before them, and the stars above. Yet in this circle, something sacred takes shape, a shared story, a shared dream. Fire as messenger. The ancients believed fire could carry prayers upward, smoke lifted into the heavens, visible, tangible, like words given wings. To sit by the fire was to sit at the threshold between worlds, the human and the divine, the earth and the sky. When a flame crackled, it was a voice. When it dimmed, it was a warning. When it roared, it was approval. Fire spoke, and humans listened. In those earliest nights of worship, rituals were simple but profound. A handful of grain cast into the flames, a carved bone set upon the embers, a whispered plea for safe travels, for rain, for protection from the beasts that prowled beyond the circle of light, and the stars above bore witness. Flames that became symbols as villages grew. Fire became central. Each home had a hearth. Each community a sacred flame that was never allowed to die. Some cultures believed the fire itself was a goddess, her body glowing red, her breath rising as smoke. Others believed it was a gift stolen from the gods, to be guarded with reverence. The first temples were not towering monuments, but sacred fires tended night after night. Around them, people danced, sang, and told stories of creation. Fire was not only survival, it was memory. It bound generations together. It lit the path of culture, myth, and belief. The first worshippers may not have known it, but in their flames, the blueprint for temples was already present. For what is a temple but a fire made solid, a flame of devotion carved into stone? Stars as eternal fires, as humans watch their fires burn and fade, they realize something profound. The stars above never dimmed. While their own flames demanded wood and care, the sky's fires burned endlessly. What kind of fire is this? They must have wondered. Who tends it? The connection between hearth and heaven grew unshakable. To worship fire was to worship the stars. To worship the stars was to worship fire. The two reflected one another endlessly. And so, when temples of stone were finally raised, they were aligned to catch the light of these eternal fires. The rising sun through a doorway, the moon framed by a window, a constellation mirrored in a circle of stones. Every flame on earth was a humble echo of the great fires of the sky. Rituals of night in those early nights, before priests and calendars. Rituals were shaped by instinct and awe. A hunter might kneel by the fire, laying down the bones of his prey in gratitude. A mother might whisper her fears into the smoke, hoping the stars would hear. Children listened to stories told in firelight, their imaginations painting gods and spirits in the embers. The first dances were born around these fires, shadows moving like spirits on the walls of caves. The first songs rose here, voices blending with the crackle of flames, echoing into the wilderness. And perhaps, most importantly, the first dreams of eternity began here. Watching fire fade and return taught humanity about cycles, of day and night, of life and death. of stars appearing and vanishing with the seasons. These fires were not just survival, they were philosophy. They were wonder made visible. From fire to stone, as centuries passed, the small circles of worship grew into sacred places marked by stones. At first, a ring of rocks to contain the flame. Later, larger stones raised high to frame the stars. Eventually, entire temples, carved so that the fires of heaven and the fires of earth could meet within their walls. But even in the grandest temples, the flame never disappeared. At the heart of every sanctuary, whether Egyptian, Greek, or Mayan, burned a sacred fire, an eternal light. It was the reminder of where worship began. The first worshippers had lit a spark. The temples that followed were simply its expansion, its echo, its eternalization in stone, the fire that burns still today. When we look at forgotten temples, we see only stone, but listen closely, and you can still hear the fire. You can almost see its glow flickering against the walls, almost feel its warmth against your face. For fire, unlike stone, leaves no ruins. It vanishes, but it is never truly gone. It reappears wherever a flame is lit. At a candle's wick, in a hearth, in the sky above. The first worshippers knew this truth instinctively. Fire cannot die. It transforms. It continues. And so, the fires they lit thousands of years ago still burn, not in ashes, but in memory, in culture, in the stars that shine overhead. A lullaby of flames as you rest tonight. Imagine yourself among those first worshippers. Feel the warmth of the fire against your skin, the cool grass beneath you, the vast sky above. Hear the murmured prayers, the laughter of children, the soft chants of elders. See the sparks rise, disappearing into the night, as if stitching the earth to the heavens. The fire crackles, the stars watch, and in this circle of light, you are safe. You are part of something eternal. The fire is your guardian. The fire is your temple. The fire is your dream. And those centuries have passed, its glow has never faded. In the silence of the ancient jungles, where vines wrapped themselves around broken stone, forgotten temples rose toward the heavens. These sacred places were more than monuments. They were instruments of time. Priests and stargazers would climb their steps at night, carrying oil lamps that flickered against the carved walls. From the highest platforms, they gazed into the vast ocean of stars, mapping the sky's slow dance across the seasons. The temples became calendars etched in stone. A single shaft of moonlight, falling through a narrow corridor, might mark the turning of the year. The alignment of stars with the temple's doorway signaled the coming of rains or the time of harvest. To those who lived under their watch, these temples were guardians of rhythm, reminders that the universe itself had a heartbeat, steady and eternal. And as generations passed, the people entrusted their sleep to these watchers of the night. For even while they rested, the temple stood vigilant, recording the whispers of the cosmos in silence, never forgetting, never sleeping. Do you want me to continue unfolding the mystery in the same poetic, cinematic style, block by block, until we reach a natural winding down, just like we did with the sailor story? You said, next block. ChatGPT said, block 5 legends. Tell us that the stones themselves seemed alive, breathing with the rhythm of the heavens. At dusk, when the sky glowed red and gold, shadows would fall across the carvings of serpents, jaguars, and celestial birds. Each figure was more than decoration. It was a fragment of a cosmic story. The serpent slithering down the temple steps during an equinox was no accident. It was a calculated dance between light and architecture. The jaguar, guardian of the night, reminded dreamers that the world of sleep and the world of stars were one and the same, and the bird, with wings spread wide, symbolized the soul's flight beyond the limits of the earth. As people lay in hammocks or on woven mats, drifting into dreams, they believed the temples continued their work, watching the stars, whispering secrets to the sky, keeping the balance between day and night, waking and sleeping. These sacred structures were not just built from stone, they were woven from faith, astronomy, and the eternal longing to understand what lies beyond. Beneath the vast and endless sky, the temples rose like silent guardians. Their stones were not merely stacked for strength, nor carved for beauty alone. They were placed with intention, with a quiet precision that mirrored the eternal rhythms of the stars. Each block of stone seemed to hum with memory, as if it carried within it the heartbeat of those who shaped it, those who prayed within its walls, and those who gazed upon the heavens with a mixture of awe and longing. Imagine yourself there, centuries ago. The air is warm, scented with smoke from the evening fires. Families gather at the foot of the great temple. Children press close to their mothers, their eyes wide with sleepiness, but unwilling to drift away just yet. Elders sit cross-legged, their faces illuminated by the flicker of torches, their voices weaving stories that are half myth and half history. All eyes are turned toward the temple's peak, where the last rays of the sun melt into the growing dusk, and the first stars awaken in the firmament. The people believed the temple was alive. Its steps were arteries through which the energy of the universe pulsed. Its carvings were eyes, watching both the world of men and the vastness beyond. At night, when silence descended like a blanket, the temple continued its vigil. It did not sleep, it waited, it measured, it remembered. For in its shadows, the mysteries of the heavens were not forgotten. The priests, draped in garments of woven cotton and feathers, would climb the stairways with measured steps. Each footfall was deliberate, a rhythm set to match the pulse of the earth. At the summit, they would kneel, not as rulers, but as humble listeners. They would raise their faces to the heavens and watch as the stars revealed their ancient dance. To the people, stars were not distant suns. They were living beings, divine companions, storytellers of light. Each constellation carried meaning. The serpent that wound its way across the sky was not just a snake. It was the same serpent carved into the temple walls, the same serpent that symbolized both death and rebirth, endings and beginnings. The Jaguar constellation was a prowling guardian of the night, leaping between worlds unseen. The bird-shaped cluster represented freedom, the flight of the soul in dreams, when the body lay still, but the spirit soared. Sleep for these people was not an ending. It was a journey. As their eyes closed and their breathing deepened, they believed their spirits rose from their resting bodies and walked among the stars. The temples, standing tall and unwavering, served as markers, lighthouses for the soul, just as sailors of the future would use stars to guide their voyages. These dreamers believed their temples aligned with the heavens, to guide their souls safely through the dark sea of dreams. Now let your imagination drift there. Picture lying on a woven mat, the hum of crickets filling the night air. The temple looms in the distance, its silhouette sharp against a sky littered with stars. A soft wind brushes across your face, carrying the faint scent of burning resin and earth. As your eyes grow heavy, you hear the distant chanting of priests. Their voices rise and fall like waves upon a shore. You feel your body relax, each muscle letting go, as though even the earth beneath you is rocking you gently to sleep. And then, in the space between waking and dreaming, you feel something shift. The temple seems to glow, faintly at first, then brighter. Its stones shimmer like starlight made solid. The serpent carved along its steps begins to move, slithering downwards with a slow grace, not threatening, but protective. The jaguar leaps from shadow to shadow, watching with keen golden eyes. Above, the bird spreads its wings, its feathers catching light that is not of this world. You realize now that the temple is more than a building. It is a bridge between the earth and the stars, between waking life and dreams, between the finite and the eternal. In its presence, you are both grounded and weightless, both small and infinite. The elders knew this truth well, and they passed it on through stories told beneath the stars. They said the temples listened. They said the stones themselves remembered every prayer, every dream, every whispered secret of those who slept in their shadow. And so, to sleep near a temple was to entrust your soul to its care, to let it hold your spirit gently while you traveled far into the dream world. But what was this dream world? To them, it was not fantasy. It was reality just as valid as the waking world. In dreams, they believed, one could visit ancestors, speak with gods, or glimpse events yet to come. Dreams were messages, coded in imagery, sent from the cosmos to guide their lives. A jaguar stalking through your dream could be a warning. A serpent coiling and shedding its skin could foretell a change, a rebirth, a new beginning. And always, the temple remained at the center, the anchor that ensured the dreamer would return safely to the body by morning light. There were stories of those who dreamt too far, who wandered too deep into the starry sea. They said these dreamers were lured by constellations, so beautiful, so radiant, that they forgot to return. At dawn, their bodies would lie still, breathing shallowly, while their spirits remained adrift among the stars. The priests, skilled in the art of guiding dreams, would climb the temple and perform rituals, calling out to the lost souls. Their chants were like ropes thrown across an invisible chasm, pulling the wanderers back to their earthly forms. Think of that for a moment. The idea that dreams were voyages, and that temples were both map and compass. Sleep, then, was never wasted time. It was sacred, necessary, a continuation of life in another dimension. And as you imagine these things, you may begin to feel a gentle weight pressing upon your eyelids. The thought of temples watching the stars, of priests chanting into the night, of serpents and jaguars carved into stone, all begins to feel like a lullaby. Even the stars themselves, scattered across the sky, twinkle with a rhythm that seems to whisper, "Rest, rest, rest." Perhaps this was the greatest gift of the temples. Not only did they mark time and measure the cosmos, they gave people permission to surrender, to let go, to sleep. For if the temple stood vigilant, if it measured the stars and kept balance with the universe, then the people could close their eyes without fear. They could trust that when they awoke, the world would still be in harmony, the stars would still shine, and the temple would still be there, standing tall, watching, remembering, even now, centuries later, when many of these temples lie in ruins, their stones worn and weathered, their carvings faded, the feeling remains. Visitors who walk among them often speak of an inexplicable calm, a strange comfort that settles over them. It is as though the stones still hum with memory, still keep vigil over the skies, still cradle the dreams of those who sleep nearby. And so, as the night deepens, we too can let ourselves drift. We can picture the ancient temples, their steps aligned with stars, their carvings alive with meaning. We can imagine lying beneath their shadow, the sky vast above us, and feel for just a moment that we are part of something larger, something timeless, something eternal. Sleep now, for the temples are still watching. Sleep now, for the stars are still guiding. Sleep now, for your soul, like theirs long ago, is safe in the embrace of the cosmos. The night is heavy with silence, the kind of silence that is not empty, but full of memory, of whispers, of things once spoken by lips, now long gone. Above the horizon, a hunter begins to rise. His belt of 3 bright stars gleams like jewels upon the black velvet sky, his shoulders crowned with a pair of radiant lights, his sword dangling in eternal readiness. The ancients knew him well. They called him Orion. For some, Orion was not a hunter at all. To the Egyptians, his figure carried the soul of Osiris, the god who died and was reborn, a guardian of the afterlife. To the Greeks, he was a mighty huntsman, striding boldly across the heavens. To the desert people, he was a marker of seasons, his rising signaling the floods or the harvest to come. And to the dreamers who lay beneath the shadow of temples, Orion was a guide, not of earthly journeys, but of those voyages made in the soft and quiet seas of sleep. Imagine standing before a great temple at night. Its steps are cool beneath your bare feet, still warm from the day's sun, but now breathing out the heat as the night embraces the land. You tilt your head back and there he is, Orion, climbing upward as though he, too, were ascending the temple stairs. His stars are steady, unwavering, like torches held aloft by unseen hands. The priests knew when Orion would rise. They charted his path carefully, watching for the moment when his belt cleared the horizon, when his shoulders reached the sky, when his entire figure stood tall and complete. For them, this was more than a spectacle. It was a message. Orion was the herald of seasons, the marker of times when crops must be planted, when rivers would swell, when journeys could be safely made across land or sea. But for the people, those who lay on mats in the temple courtyards, their bodies softening into the pull of sleep, Orion was something deeper. They believed that when Orion rose, the doors of the dream world opened wider. His belt was a key, a passage, a bridge between the mortal and the divine. To dream under Orion's gaze was to walk closer to gods, to receive visions of clarity, of guidance, of destiny. The elders would tell stories of Orion's hunt, stories whispered into the ears of children, whose eyes grew heavy beneath the stars. They spoke of his endless chase, of his stride across the heavens that never ceased, and they told of how his pursuit was not for animals, but for truth itself, the eternal truth that hides just out of reach, just beyond the horizon, forever drawing us forward. Now, picture yourself among them. You are lying upon a woven mat, the earth solid beneath you, the night air cool and comforting. Above, Orion rises slowly, his stars piercing the sky with a brilliance that feels alive. Around you, the sounds of the night settle into a gentle chorus. The rustle of leaves, the chirping of crickets, the distant call of an owl. A fire flickers nearby, its smoke carrying upward, as though joining the stars in their vigil. Your eyelids grow heavy. The elders' voices drift like soft music, telling of Orion's journey, of how his stars guide the spirits of the sleeping. You begin to imagine him not as a constellation, but as a companion, walking beside you in dreams. His belt becomes a road, his stars lanterns along the path. He leads you across fields of starlight, across rivers of shadow, into realms where time slows, and the heart is freed from the weight of waking concerns. To those ancient dreamers, Orion's rising was a promise that even in the vast darkness, there were guides who would not let them wander alone. His stars reminded them that patterns exist within chaos, that meaning can be found even in the endless night. To dream under Orion was to be reminded that life too had its rhythms, its order, its guiding lights. The temples themselves were often aligned with Orion. Their stairways pointed toward the horizon where he rose. Their carvings echoed his shape, 3 stones in a row mirroring his belt, walls etched with hunters and stars. These temples were not simply monuments of stone. They were mirrors of the sky, built so that Earth could reflect heaven. When Orion rose, it was as though the temple itself awakened, its stones glowing faintly in the starlight, its very form in harmony with the heavens. The priests would climb those steps, carrying torches that flickered against the night. They would stand at the summit, raising their arms to Orion, chanting prayers that were half song, half incantation. Their voices carried across the land, weaving into the night air like threads of gold. They believed Orion could hear, that his rising was not passive, but responsive, that he watched the people just as they watched him. And when the chanting ended, when silence returned, the people would close their eyes and surrender to sleep. They believed that Orion himself would stand guard over their dreams, that his stars would form a net of light, protecting their spirits from getting lost in the vast sea of the night. Some told of dreams in which they followed Orion through forests of shadow and light, where every tree sparkled with stars instead of leaves. Others dreamt of walking across Orion's belt itself, each star a stepping stone, each step carrying them farther into realms of wonder. And when they awoke, they did not dismiss these dreams as fantasy. They carried them as messages, as gifts, as fragments of wisdom to be woven into their waking lives. Perhaps you too can feel it now, the gentle pull of Orion's light. As you imagine him rising, striding across the heavens, you may feel your body relax, your breath deepen. The stars begin to blur softly as your eyes grow heavier. The stories settle into your mind like feathers, light and soothing. Orion becomes not just a figure in the sky, but a presence here with you, guiding your spirit toward rest. For even now, thousands of years later, Orion's stars shine just as brightly. They rise in the same rhythm, follow the same eternal path, and though the temples may crumble, though the priest's chants may fade into memory, Orion remains. He still rises, he still watches, he still guides. And so, as you drift into sleep, remember this: the same stars that guided ancient dreamers still shine above you. The same Orion that once led priests and children into visions now rises for you as well. Let his light be your lantern, his stride your rhythm, his presence your comfort. Sleep then, not as one who is alone, but as one who is accompanied by the eternal hunter, the guardian of night, the guide of dreams. The night deepens. The silence grows softer. Orion climbs higher, steady and unyielding. And you, like those who came before, can close your eyes knowing that the heavens still watch, the stars still guide, and your spirit is forever safe beneath their glow. The night sky has always been a map, scattered with countless points of light. But among all the stars, there is one that has held humanity's gaze for longer than memory can recall. A single steadfast flame that does not wander, does not fade, does not dance across the heavens as the others do. To the ancients this mystery was profound. They called it the North Star, while other stars seemed to swirl and circle endlessly. This one remained still, as if nailed into the fabric of the sky. It became a secret whispered among priests, a guardian known to sailors, a promise kept in stone by the builders of temples. To sleep beneath its glow was to surrender your spirit into the arms of certainty. To dream with its light upon you was to know you would not lose your way. Imagine lying on the earth, the grass cool beneath you. The sky above is infinite, its stars scattered like diamonds spilled across velvet. As you gaze upward, you notice how they all seem to move, to drift slowly through the night as the hours pass. And yet, one star does not. One star remains exactly where it is, unwavering, unmoving, eternal. It is the North Star, Polaris. For ancient dreamers, this was no mere star. It was an anchor, a pivot around which the universe turned. To them, it was the still center of all things, the fixed heart of the heavens. And from this belief, entire worlds of meaning unfolded. Sailors who braved the seas learned to trust it. When clouds parted and the North Star shone clear, they felt relief settle into their bones, for they knew they were not lost. Farmers, too, saw it as a sign of constancy, a reassurance that no matter how seasons shifted, some things remained the same. Priests wove it into their rituals, pointing to it from the tops of temples, proclaiming that it was the eye of the divine, watching over the world without ever closing. But beyond these practical truths, the North Star held an even greater secret. It whispered to the soul about stability, about the beauty of stillness in a world that never ceased moving. The people believed that if one dreamed beneath its light, the dream would be clearer, steadier, more truthful than those birthed under wandering stars. Imagine the scene. A child drifts to sleep at the foot of a great temple. His mother points upward to the North Star, telling him stories of how it never abandons its place, how it watches over him no matter where he walks. As the boy's eyes flutter shut, he dreams of a great pillar of light stretching from the star down to earth, a golden path upon which spirits can travel safely. He walks this path in his sleep, feeling the warmth of the star's glow upon his face. And though he wanders far, he always knows the way back. The priest taught that the North Star was not just a point of light, but a doorway. They said it was the place where the heavens turned, the axis upon which both the visible and invisible worlds spun. When they carved their temples, when they aligned their stone corridors and towering pillars, many did so in reverence to this one star. It was not superstition, it was sacred geometry. The temples were built as earthly reflections of the heavens, their stones pointing always toward this eternal flame. And as the people slept near these temples, they felt its influence upon their dreams. To dream beneath the North Star was to find direction in life. Those who woke from such dreams often carried with them a sense of clarity, of purpose. They would say, "I know now which path I must walk, for the star has shown me." Legends grew around the star. Some said it was the soul of the first ancestor, watching forever over his children. Others claimed it was a torch, held aloft by a god who vowed never to let darkness consume the world. And still others whispered that it was a hole in the sky, a window through which one could glimpse eternity itself. The storytellers would gather children and elders alike and point to the star as night deepened. Their voices would soften, their words slow, as though the presence of the star demanded calm. They would speak of travelers who wandered into unknown lands but always returned, guided by its light. They would tell of dreamers who walked too far in their sleep, who nearly lost themselves in the boundless expanse, but who were gently led home by the star's steady glow. Now imagine yourself there, lying beneath the heavens, listening to these stories. The air is cool, a breeze brushing lightly against your skin. The sounds of the earth have hushed, leaving only the quiet song of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl. Above, the North Star gleams like an unblinking eye, calm, unwavering. Its light touches you softly, like a hand resting gently upon your shoulder. As your body relaxes, as your breath slows, you begin to feel as though you too are connected to that star. A thread of light stretches from your heart up into the sky, tethering you, anchoring you. And in this connection, you feel safe. You feel held. You know that no matter how far your dreams may carry you, no matter how deep into the starry sea you may drift, there is always a way home. The ancients trusted this feeling. They allowed it to guide them, not only across oceans, but across the landscapes of their own lives. They believed that the North Star spoke not only to sailors, but to every soul, reminding them of the importance of constancy, of faith, of direction. To live without a North Star, they said, was to wander endlessly, but to live with it, to keep it always in sight, was to walk with certainty, even in darkness. And so, the North Star became more than a light in the sky. It became a symbol of hope, of trust, of something eternal in a world where everything else changed. Kings and shepherds alike lifted their eyes to it. Priests aligned their temples with it. Children fell asleep beneath it, dreaming of journeys safe and true. Even now, as centuries pass and civilizations rise and fall, the North Star remains. It still holds its place in the heavens, still steady, still constant. Its secret endures, that in the vastness of the universe, in the swirling chaos of stars, there is always one point of stillness, one guide that never wavers. So tonight, as you listen to these words, you may find yourself feeling that same calm. You may feel your body sinking deeper into rest, your thoughts quieting, your spirit anchoring. Let the North Star be your guide, as it was for those long ago. Let its steadiness remind you that no matter how far your dreams carry you, you are never lost. There is always a way home. Close your eyes now, and let the secret of the North Star watch over you. Its light has never failed, and it will not fail you. Rest, dream, wander, and return, all under the gentle gaze of the eternal flame in the sky. Imagine now the quiet lands of Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, where the rivers Tigris and Euphrates wound their way across a fertile plain. Here, under the moon's gentle glow, people raised temples of clay and stone that reached for the heavens. Their priests, standing upon step platforms, lifted their eyes to the stars, not merely for beauty, but for guidance, for survival, for meaning. These were the ziggurats, towering structures that seemed to climb like stairways into the night sky. One could picture the great ziggurat of Ur, its tiers rising above the flat earth, its baked bricks glowing faintly in the moonlight. From atop its summit, priests observed the heavens. Every shift in the stars, every passing of a wandering planet, every sudden eclipse was carefully marked. For the Mesopotamians, the skies above were not simply distant lights, but a living script, a divine message written night after night. As you lie back, imagine yourself upon that temple top, wrapped in the warmth of a woven cloak, the night air cool and fragrant with desert breezes. Below, torches flicker in the courtyards, while above, the stars crowd the heavens in shimmering patterns. A priest whispers softly to an apprentice, teaching him how to read the sky's secrets. When to plant, when to harvest, when the floods would come. In their eyes, the temple was not just a house of worship. It was a bridge between earth and the stars. And so, while the city slept, the temples watched. They did not close their eyes as humans did. They stood eternal, like guardians, gazing upward. The thought itself is comforting, isn't it? That while fragile bodies needed rest, the world still had watchful eyes, pillars of stone and towers of faith, keeping vigil in the endless night. Now, let us drift westward in our imagination, across deserts and seas, until we reach the ancient land of Greece. Here too, the night sky was filled with wonder, and the temples rose in graceful lines against the horizon. Think of the Parthenon in Athens, its marble columns gleaming even under the soft light of the moon. To the Greeks, the heavens were alive with gods and myths. Each star held a story, each constellation a tale whispered to generations. As you close your eyes, imagine a storyteller seated by the temple steps, weaving words into the cool night. He speaks of Orion, the great hunter, forever chasing across the sky. He speaks of Andromeda, chained to the rocks but saved by Perseus. The children who listen drift slowly into dreams, their imaginations carried away by celestial tales, and above them, the temple itself glows faintly, a silent witness to both myth and sleep. What is most striking about these temples, whether in Mesopotamia, Greece, or faraway lands, is how they were always oriented toward the sky. Builders aligned them with solstices and equinoxes, with rising suns and setting moons. They were not built in random ways. They were carefully placed so that light and shadow would fall at certain moments of the year. A beam of sunlight would pierce a sanctuary at dawn, or the full moon would crown a rooftop altar. These alignments were not merely decoration. They were assurances. To ancient peoples, such designs meant the universe was in harmony with their lives. The cosmos and the human heart were not separate, but intertwined. When temples watched the skies, they reassured all who dwelled nearby that the world made sense, that the heavens were not indifferent, but deeply connected to the rhythms of human existence. Now, breathe slowly and think of how soothing this knowledge must have been. In an age without clocks, without electric light, without weather reports, people trusted the sky and the temples that mirrored it. At night, when sleep came, they rested with the confidence that the stars were being watched, the world measured, and life guided by something larger than themselves. If you allow yourself to imagine deeply, you might even hear the faint rustle of reeds by a Mesopotamian riverbank, or the creak of marble steps in Athens, or the call of an owl in the night. All these sounds fold into the same lullaby, the song of forgotten temples, steady in their vigil, watching the skies while humanity dreamed. And as centuries turned to millennia, the same cycle repeated. In Egypt, pyramids and temples aligned with Orion's belt and Sirius, the star that heralded the flooding of the Nile. In the Americas, Mayan pyramids tracked equinox shadows with precision, while stone temples in Peru marked the solstice with shafts of sunlight. Everywhere, across oceans and deserts, humans built with the heavens in mind. It is as if the entire planet was once a great sleeper, resting while stone guardians kept time with the stars. So as you listen now, let your mind drift like a cloud above those landscapes. Picture a temple hidden in jungle leaves, its stones covered in moss, yet still aligned with the rising sun. Picture another half buried in desert sands, its shadow falling perfectly north and south as it always has. Even in ruin, these places keep their vigil. Even forgotten, they continue to measure the skies. And perhaps tonight, as you fall gently into your own dreams, you too are joining that timeless rhythm. The rhythm of sleep beneath stars, watched over by ancient stone. Now let us wander slowly into the ancient sands of Egypt, where temples and pyramids still rise like silent sentinels. Here, the desert night stretches endlessly, and the stars shine so brightly that they seem almost close enough to touch. The Egyptians lived their lives in harmony with the rhythms of the Nile and the heavens above, and their greatest monuments reflected this union between earth and sky. The pyramids at Giza, for instance, were not simply tombs for kings. They were vast cosmic markers. Scholars and stargazers have long noticed how their sides align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, and how their placement mirrors the 3 stars of Orion's belt. To the Egyptians, Orion represented Osiris, the god of rebirth and eternity. By aligning their pyramids with the stars, they were not just building monuments, they were building gateways, connecting human lives with the eternal patterns of the cosmos. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself standing at the base of the Great Pyramid on a cool night thousands of years ago. The desert air is crisp, and a soft wind sweeps across the sand. Priests in linen robes ascend the narrow pathways, carrying torches that flicker against the dark. They pause at precise points, waiting for certain stars to rise above the horizon. When they appear, cheers ripple quietly through the small gathering, for it means the universe is still in balance, still guiding their lives. Imagine the comfort this gave them. Life was harsh. Floods, famine, sickness, and toil were constant. Yet, when they looked to the sky and saw Orion above the pyramids, they felt reassured. The gods had not abandoned them. The temples and pyramids were watching, connecting their fragile lives with eternal order. Even more enchanting were temples like Karnak and Abu Simbel. These were not merely places for offerings and rituals, but precise instruments of time. At Karnak, shafts of sunlight would pierce the temple's inner sanctum, only during the solstices, filling it with golden light. At Abu Simbel, twice a year, the rising sun would travel down a long stone corridor to illuminate the statues of gods seated in perfect silence. These moments were not accidents of architecture. They were deliberate alignments, cosmic harmonies carved into stone. Picture being there at dawn, among a crowd of awestruck onlookers. The horizon blushes with the first hints of sunlight. Slowly, the rays creep forward, moving through the dark corridor. The silence is so complete, you can hear the beating of your own heart. Then, suddenly, the chamber glows, and the gods are bathed in light. People gasp, some weep, and a deep calm spreads through the crowd. They know that all is well, that the heavens still turn, the sun still rises, and life continues. And when night came, after such celestial confirmations, people could sleep peacefully. They lay on reed mats, wrapped in linen, listening to the hum of insects or the faint rush of the Nile. Above them, temples stood as stone guardians, watching the skies as they had been designed to do. The people may have been vulnerable, but their temples were eternal, and in that eternity lay comfort. Now let us drift further up the Nile to Luxor, where the grand temple complex stretches like a dream of stone. At night, torches cast soft shadows along its avenues of sphinxes. The walls rise high, covered in carvings of gods, kings, and stars. The temple's alignment is not random. It, too, is tied to celestial events. Imagine lying nearby, listening to the chanting of priests carried faintly on the wind, while above, the Milky Way arcs like a river of light across the heavens. The temple watches, the stars move, and sleep comes easily. What is most soothing about these stories is the reminder that humans have always longed for order, for meaning, for reassurance in the darkness. Our ancestors built with patience and precision so that their homes of stone could become bridges to the eternal sky. Their temples were guardians, not only of their waking lives, but of their sleep, standing watch when eyes were closed. Think of how this connects us to them. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, you are not so different from an ancient Egyptian lying by the Nile. You both seek the same peace, that sense that the universe is steady, that tomorrow will arrive as surely as the stars wheel overhead. The temples of the past remind us of this truth. Though ages pass and civilizations rise and fall, the night sky remains. And so, as we close this chapter of our journey, imagine those forgotten temples once more. Their stones may now be weathered, their walls half buried in sand. Their priests. From the sands of Egypt, let us drift gently across the ocean, carried on the wings of night itself, until we find ourselves in the lush jungles of Central America. The air here is heavy with humidity, filled with the calls of unseen birds and the rustle of leaves. In this green world, where stone and forest intertwine, the Maya built their own temples, monuments not of the desert, but of the jungle, yet just as bound to the skies above. Close your eyes for a moment and picture it. Towering pyramids, rising above dense canopies, their stairways steep, their tops crowned with small shrines. The night air is alive with the hum of cicadas, and above the trees stretches the infinite expanse of the stars. The Milky Way glimmers here too, bright and unbroken, an endless celestial river arching overhead. For the Maya, this shimmering path was not merely a wonder of the night. It was the road of the gods, a celestial highway, traveled by deities and spirits. Temples like those at Chichen Itza, Tikal, and Palenque were not random constructions. They were precise instruments of time and sky. The Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, for example, was more than just a pyramid. Twice a year, during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the sun casts a shadow that slithers down its steps, like a serpent, joining with the great stone serpent, heads carved at its base. Imagine being there, standing among thousands of people in hushed awe as the serpent of light descends, marking the balance of day and night. To the Maya, this was no coincidence. It was proof that their temples were alive, that they were in dialogue with the heavens. And while great ceremonies were held during the day, the true magic came at night. When darkness fell and the chants quieted, the temples remained, immovable, eternal, watching the stars just as faithfully as Egypt's pyramids. Now picture lying near such a temple on a warm night. The stone radiates the day's heat, and the air is thick with the scent of tropical flowers. High above, the constellations stretch wide. The Maya knew these stars intimately. They tracked Venus with remarkable precision, marking its cycles over years and decades. To them, Venus was not just a planet, but a powerful deity, a bringer of omens, a guide for warfare and peace alike. Priests, wrapped in bright feathers and incense smoke, would climb the temple stairs to observe the planets rising. And yet, after the rituals ended, the stars still shone, keeping watch as the people drifted into sleep. What is most soothing is the thought that, much like the Egyptians, the Maya found comfort in this connection. Life in the jungle could be uncertain. Storms swept through without warning. Crops withered under unexpected droughts, and rival cities waged wars. Yet the stars never betrayed them. The temples never shifted from their careful alignments, even when the people closed their eyes. These stone guardians stood vigil, ensuring that the sky's eternal rhythm would continue. The Maya were not alone in this cosmic architecture. Farther south, in the highlands of Peru, the Incas carved their own celestial sanctuaries. At Machu Picchu, nestled high in the Andes, stones were placed with a precision so fine that even centuries of earthquakes could not topple them. Here, the Temple of the Sun was built, so that during the solstices, sunlight would shine through a single window to illuminate a sacred stone. Imagine the awe as golden light pierced the mountain silence, bathing the temple in warmth. while llamas grazed nearby and condors wheeled above. And when the sun set, Machu Picchu did not lose its magic. High in the Andes, the night sky is astonishingly clear. The stars burn with a sharpness unknown to lowlands and cities. For the Incas, the constellations were not only the bright clusters of stars, but also the dark spaces between them. In the dark patches of the Milky Way, they saw animals, llamas, foxes, serpents, celestial guardians that mirrored life on Earth. They believed these shapes watched over them just as much as the temples did. Picture lying on a terrace at Machu Picchu as night falls. The stone beneath you is cool, and the mountain air carries a chill. You pull a woven blanket close and gaze upward. Above you, the stars blaze. The sacred constellations stretch from horizon to horizon. Around you, the stone walls and terraces of the city rest in perfect silence. You feel as though you are not alone, as though the stars themselves are keeping you company, whispering softly across the ages. And so, whether in the jungles of the Maya or the mountains of the Incas, people slept beneath skies that were alive with meaning. Their temples were not only homes for gods, but also guardians of the night, ensuring that even as human eyes closed, the heavens remained in motion. Constant and eternal, what unites these civilizations, so far apart in space and time, is the shared belief that stone and sky could speak to each other, that by shaping the earth carefully, humans could mirror the heavens, and in that mirroring lay reassurance, the kind that soothes the restless mind and allows sleep to come gently. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself drifting between these places. One moment, you are in the thick jungles of Tikal, where temples rise like green-clad giants. The next, you are high in the Andes, where stone walls cling to mountainsides, and the night air is sharp with stars. In both, the same truth holds. The sky is eternal, and the temples, though built by human hands, are its companions. And so, as we close this block, let us remember, while people of the past may be gone, their temples remain, still watching, still aligned, still marking the dance of sun, moon, and stars. They remind us that when we close our eyes at night, we are part of something much larger, that long after our worries fade, the stars will still shine, and the stone guardians will still keep watch, ensuring that sleep comes safely, softly, like a blessing. Let us journey now, as if carried gently on a night breeze, across the oceans and mountains until we arrive in Asia, where the stars have inspired temples of unparalleled beauty and mystery. Here, stone sanctuaries rise not from desert sands or jungle vines, but from sacred riversides, forest clearings, and mist-covered hills. These temples, too, were aligned with the heavens, and through them, people sought comfort, meaning, and peace as they drifted into the quiet of sleep. The sacred waters of India, our first stop, is along the banks of the Ganges River, where countless temples line the water's edge. To the people of ancient India, the cosmos was a living order, a vast rhythm in which every life and every star had its place. Their temples reflected this philosophy. The great stone towers, called shikharas, were carved to resemble the mythical mountain, Mount Meru, believed to be the center of the universe. At night, when the stars scattered across the sky, these temples stood like cosmic mirrors, linking the earthly realm with the heavens above. Imagine walking along the ghats of Varanasi on a warm night thousands of years ago. Oil lamps float down the river, their flames flickering like small stars on the dark water. The chants of priests echo through the air, accompanied by the steady hum of crickets. Then, as the night deepens, silence falls. Only the stars remain, reflected in the slow-moving river. The temples watch silently, their spires pointing skyward, as though reaching to touch the constellations. Pilgrims, weary from travel, rest in the courtyards, wrapped in blankets, soothed by the sense that the universe itself is watching over them. But Indian temples were not only shaped by myth, they were also aligned with the cosmos in precise ways. In Konark, the Great Sun Temple was designed as a giant stone chariot, its wheels representing time itself. The temple's alignment marked the sun's path across the sky, casting shadows that served as a cosmic clock. Imagine lying in its shadow after a long day, the cool stone beneath you, the sound of waves from the nearby ocean blending with the faint whisper of the wind. As you close your eyes, you know that the temple is still counting time, still tracking the eternal journey of the sun. Even while you sleep, the jungle temples of Cambodia, farther east, deep within the jungles of Cambodia, rises Angkor Wat, one of the largest temples ever built by human hands. At dawn, the temple glows with golden light, but it is under the stars that its magic truly shines. Its towers are not random in design. They reflect the movements of celestial bodies. The central spire aligns with the rising sun during the equinox, marking the balance of seasons. Its long causeways mirror the cosmic order, and its courtyards are filled with carvings of heavenly dancers, guardians, and gods. Imagine standing before Angkor Wat, under a velvet black sky. The air is heavy with the scent of blooming lotuses, and the temple's reflection shimmers in the still waters of its moat. Fireflies flicker among the trees, like sparks of starlight brought down to earth. Above, the Milky Way stretches brilliantly, mirrored by the temple's silhouette. Pilgrims gather at its steps, some in prayer, some lying down to rest. For them, the temple is not just stone. It is a map of the universe, a promise that the stars will continue their endless journey. Picture yourself lying among them, the night alive with both silence and sound. The temple looms above, unchanging, eternal. You close your eyes, feeling the peace of knowing that you too are part of this cosmic dance. The celestial harmony of China, in China, temples and observatories blended into one another, reflecting a culture deeply committed to harmony between heaven and earth. The Temple of Heaven in Beijing, for example, is a perfect circle, symbolizing the sky. Here, emperors once stood to perform rituals that aligned the fate of the empire with the movement of the stars. The temple's wooden pillars rise upward like a forest, supporting a dome that seems to echo the heavens themselves. Imagine standing in its vast courtyard at night, when the city is hushed, and only the stars above break the darkness. The temple's tiles gleam faintly in the moonlight, and the circular design seems to draw the sky down into itself. In the silence, you feel as though the temple is breathing with the universe, each beam and shadow part of a greater cosmic order. Sleep would come easily here, as though the very structure were a cradle, holding you in harmony with the heavens. The Chinese were also great astronomers. Their star maps date back thousands of years, and their temples often served as both places of worship and instruments of observation. High above the city walls, astronomers watched the stars night after night, charting their movements, ensuring that the empire remained aligned with the will of heaven. For ordinary people, this knowledge was a source of deep comfort. Even if crops failed or rivers flooded, the stars remained steady, and the temples, silent guardians of this knowledge, ensured that balance would return, a shared peace across Asia. What unites these places? India's riverside sanctuaries, Cambodia's jungle temples, and China's celestial palaces is their ability to weave together stone and sky. Each was built to mirror the heavens, to reassure the people that life on earth was not chaotic, but part of a greater order. And when night came and eyes closed, these temples continued their silent work. Picture yourself drifting between them now. One moment you are lying by the Ganges, the river reflecting starlight. The next, you are beneath the towering spires of Angkor Wat, where the stars shimmer above the jungle. Then, you find yourself in Beijing, within the circular harmony of the Temple of Heaven. In each place, the same truth holds. The universe is vast, eternal, and yet it cares for you as you breathe deeply. Imagine these temples watching over you, keeping you safe, just as they watched over generations before. Their stones may be weathered, their rituals long faded, but their purpose remains. They are guardians of the night, companions of the stars, and reminders that even as we sleep, the cosmos continues its gentle, unbroken dance. And so, as this block closes, let the thoughts settle softly in your heart. You are not alone in the night. The temples of Asia, forgotten yet eternal, still align with the heavens, still breathe with the rhythm of the stars. And as you surrender to sleep, they are there, watching, guiding, and comforting. Across time and space, let us now drift gently westward, carried across shifting dunes and ancient trade routes, until we arrive in the Middle East, the cradle of civilization, where the desert sky has long been a canvas for human wonder. Here, forgotten observatories and desert temples rose beneath starlit heavens, guiding shepherds, travelers, and kings alike. In this vast landscape, where night falls with clarity unmatched, the stars are so bright they seem almost alive, whispering, pulsing, promising order in the endless dark. Babylon. The watchers of the sky, our journey begins in Babylon, where the priests of the ziggurats, step temples of clay and stone, watch the heavens with devotion. To them, the night sky was a great scroll, written by the gods themselves. Every planet, every star, every eclipse carried meaning. High upon their ziggurats, priests stood in silence, their eyes fixed on the heavens. These were not idle stargazers. They were guardians of cosmic order, entrusted with reading the messages of the sky. Picture yourself standing at the base of a Babylonian ziggurat on a cool desert night. The temple rises like a staircase into the heavens, each level narrowing as it ascends. Torches flicker along its steps, and the faint sound of chanting drifts down. At the summit, cloaked figures study the stars, their tablets ready to record what they see. You tilt your head back, and the sky above is vast and endless, filled with constellations that shine like jewels. The desert is silent, except for the distant howl of wind. And yet here, in this quiet, the universe feels close, personal, alive. For the Babylonians, the stars were both guardians and guides. They divided the sky into sections, assigning meanings to constellations, predicting the movements of planets. Their temples doubled as observatories, where stone and starlight worked together. Even as people slept in mud brick houses nearby, the ziggurats kept watch, their priests ensuring that the heavens were understood, that nothing in the sky went unseen. Petra, the rose-red city farther west. In the rose-red cliffs of Petra, the Nabateans built temples carved directly into stone. Their sacred city, hidden among canyons, was a place where traders gathered and gods were honored. But it was also a place aligned with the stars. The great monastery, Aldea, faces the solstice sunset, and at the right time of year, its doorway frames the setting sun like a jewel in stone. Imagine being there at twilight, seated on cool sandstone steps. As the sun sinks lower, shadows stretch across the canyon walls, and as darkness deepens, stars emerge above the desert cliffs. The silence of the night is profound, broken only by the rustle of wind through narrow passages. You lie back, the stone warm beneath you, and look upward. Above Petra, the sky reveals itself in full majesty, bright, steady, eternal. The temples carved into rock stand like guardians, watching both the earth and the heavens, offering their silent reassurance to every soul resting nearby. The star temples of Arabia, across the Arabian deserts, nomads looked to the stars for guidance. Their lives depended on celestial navigation, for the stars were the only maps across endless dunes. Temples and sacred enclosures often mirrored this cosmic reliance, aligning with stars that marked direction and season. Picture a Bedouin encampment centuries ago, tents pitched among the sands, camels resting nearby. Children fall asleep to the soft murmur of lullabies, while elders sit by fires, pointing to constellations that tell stories of gods, heroes, and jinn. In the distance, a stone temple stands small but steady, its doorway aligned with the rising of Sirius, the brightest star of the desert sky. Even as sleep takes the weary, the temple keeps its vigil, tied to the same star that guides travelers through the night. The birth of astronomy in this region, temples gave rise not only to rituals, but to science itself. From Babylon to Damascus, from Ur to Baghdad, scholars studied the heavens with increasing precision. They built instruments, recorded eclipses, charted the paths of planets. The temples were no longer just houses of gods, but houses of knowledge, places where the mysteries of the night were slowly unraveled. And yet, for the ordinary people, this knowledge was translated into comfort. If priests declared that the stars foretold peace, sleep came easily. If they promised that the floods would be favorable, families rested with lighter hearts. Even when omens were dark, there was still reassurance in knowing that the universe had a rhythm, that nothing happened without reason. A desert night's lullaby. Now imagine yourself lying in the desert, far from cities, far from noise. The sand beneath you is cool, and the air carries the scent of distant myrrh and frankincense. The sky is a vast canopy of stars, brighter than you have ever seen them. Around you, the ruins of forgotten temples rise, broken columns, weathered stones, silent arches. Though their priests are long gone, the alignment remains. The stars still pass through their doorways, still shine above their spires, still connect earth and heaven in a silent dialogue. You close your eyes, and in the quiet, you feel the weight of eternity pressing gently upon you. Not heavy, not frightening, but soothing. The same stars that guided Babylonian priests, Nabatean builders, and Arabian wanderers are here tonight, watching over you as they watched over them. The forgotten temples may crumble, but the sky remains, eternal and comforting. The eternal watch. What is most beautiful about these Middle Eastern temples and observatories is their reminder that human beings have always sought meaning in the stars. Whether in ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the cliffs of Petra, or the open deserts of Arabia, people looked upward, not only for guidance, but for peace. And when night came, when their eyes grew heavy and their bodies longed for rest, the stars above and the temples below kept watch together, stone and starlight, eternal guardians of sleep. And so, as this block comes to a gentle close, let yourself drift into that same sense of safety. Imagine the ziggurat towering into the sky, the temple of Petra glowing under starlight, the desert stretching silent and endless. In all these places, the stars shine on, unchanged, eternal, and just as they watched over those who came before, they now watch over you. The night stretches endlessly, as though the fabric of time itself has softened to cradle us in its embrace. Above, the stars glimmer like an eternal choir, their light reaching through centuries to whisper ancient secrets into the ears of those willing to listen. And beneath their watchful glow, the forgotten temples continue to stand, silent, steadfast, guardians of mysteries that even the passing of empires has not erased. In this block of our journey, we ventured deeper into the forgotten sanctuaries that lay scattered across mountains, jungles and deserts, temples whose stones bear the memory of civilizations long gone, yet whose placement and alignment still tell stories about the skies. Each step we take draws us closer to understanding how these structures were more than houses of gods. They were observatories, calendars, and compasses for souls navigating both land and eternity. The temple as a living clock. Imagine a temple not simply as a hall of worship, but as a clock of immense proportions. The walls, the gates, the shadows cast by pillars, all were carefully positioned to measure time. At Angkor Wat, in Cambodia, dawn on the spring equinox bathes the central tower in golden light, as if the sun itself bows in reverence. Archaeologists once thought this alignment was a coincidence, but further studies revealed that its builders engineered the temple as a cosmic mirror. Its corridors symbolize cycles of time, days, months, and even entire cosmic ages. As villagers slept in nearby huts, unaware of the temple's full cosmic design, the priests stood awake at night, recording the heavens, each star that crossed the horizon, each solstice sunrise, was inscribed into rituals and carved into stone. The forgotten temples, therefore, were not passive places, but living instruments, bridges between heaven and earth. Shadows that speak. Let us journey to Chichen Itza, where the great pyramid known as El Castillo stands. During the equinoxes, sunlight and shadow, create the illusion of a serpent descending the steps, uniting the heavens with the earth. To the Maya, this was the descent of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent deity. But what does this mean for us? As dreamers gazing at the story now, it reminds us that the night sky was not only a map, but also a storybook. Every constellation was a sentence. Every shadow cast by the temples was a paragraph. The world was written in light and darkness. And those who built these temples were readers and writers of this celestial text. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing there, thousands of years ago. The crowd gathers, whispers ripple through the air, and then it happens. The serpent of light slithers into being. People gasp, some kneel, some raise their hands. In that instant, they felt connected, not just to their gods, but to the universe itself. The temple became a stage where the cosmos performed. The forgotten listeners. It is important to remember that not everyone in these civilizations understood the full language of the stars. Much like today, where only astronomers can calculate precise celestial mechanics, ancient societies relied on a chosen few, the watchers, the listeners, the interpreters. These were the temple priests, the astronomer priests, the ones who sacrificed sleep to keep vigil beneath the endless heavens. Imagine them on quiet nights. While the city slept, torches flickered against stone walls, and a figure climbed the temple steps with a bundle of scrolls or a polished obsidian disc to record star positions. Alone under the vault of the universe, they whispered prayers not only to the gods, but to the stars themselves, treating them as companions. For these forgotten listeners, every shift in the night sky carried meaning. A star that disappeared foretold the coming of rains. A red glow near the horizon might signal danger. A comet was not a curiosity, but a divine message, sometimes one of hope, sometimes one of fear. And so, even as ordinary people slept unaware, the temple stayed awake with their priests, like guardians keeping watch for the world. The breath of the desert. Let us drift now to Egypt once again, where the desert breathes silence, and the temples lie like skeletons, half buried in golden sand. Karnak, Luxor, Dendera, names that echo with reverence. These were not only monuments to gods, but blueprints of the cosmos. At Dendera, the ceiling of the temple bears the famous zodiac, a carved map of the heavens that places Egyptian mythology side by side with celestial constellations. Here, the goddess Nut arches across the sky, her body becoming the very canopy of stars. The priests of Dendera did not merely worship her. They studied her movements, measuring the stars against her cosmic form. And while the faithful brought offerings of bread and beer to the gods, the astronomer priests offered something else, attention. They tracked Sirius, the brightest star, whose rising heralded the Nile's flood. This wasn't simply science, it was survival. The forgotten temples of Egypt, therefore, were calendars that could mean the difference between famine and abundance. Close your eyes again and picture a priest standing atop the temple, his linen robe fluttering in the desert breeze. He waits in stillness, scanning the horizon for that first glimmer of Sirius before dawn. When it appears, he breathes a sigh of relief, for he knows the floods will come, the crops will grow, and his people will live. His temple has fulfilled its purpose. not just to honor the gods, but to keep his people alive. Jungles that remember now. Let us journey far from the desert, into thick jungles where vines swallow stone and parrots cry in the canopy. In Guatemala, the temples of Tikal rise above the treetops, their steps leading to silent chambers where kings were buried and stars were charted. Imagine the silence of the night there. The forest hums with insects, and jaguars prowl in the shadows. A priest ascends the narrow staircase, each step echoing against stone. From the temple's summit, the canopy stretches like an endless sea of green, and above it, the sky opens, brilliant, infinite. The Milky Way arches overhead like a river of light, and the priest lifts his eyes, memorizing patterns only he understands. These temples were like lighthouses in a sea of jungle, guiding not ships, but souls. Their builders believed that to align a temple with the stars was to guarantee harmony between earth and heaven. As long as the alignment remained true, life would flourish. But as centuries passed, the jungle grew unchecked. Empires collapsed, and the temples became lost. Yet the stars remained where they always were, keeping silent vigil over ruins reclaimed by nature. A whisper across time, all these forgotten temples, though silent now, still whisper across time. Their alignments, their carvings, their very existence invite us to remember that human beings have always looked up at the stars with wonder. The difference is only in the language. Today, we use telescopes and satellites, data charts and algorithms. Yet the feeling is the same as it was thousands of years ago. The awe, the longing, the sense of being part of something vast and mysterious. The forgotten temples remind us that our ancestors, though separated by millennia, shared that same human heartbeat beneath the stars. And as we too drift towards sleep, their memory lingers. We are part of the same story, one that began long before us and will continue long after. The temples stand, the stars shine, and the night watches over us all. The night is never truly silent. Even in ruins forgotten by empires, there is a murmur, a rhythm, a pulse that vibrates through the stones. The forgotten temples breathe with the earth itself, and their whispers rise when we take the time to listen. As we drift deeper into this story, we begin to sense not only the structures themselves, but the invisible thread that ties them all together. A thread woven of starlight, human devotion, and the longing to belong to something greater than ourselves. The temples as star maps. When we gaze at these ancient sanctuaries scattered across the globe, a question lingers. Why do so many of them point to the same stars? The pyramids of Giza align with Orion's belt. The temples of Angkor Wat mirror the constellation Draco. The stone circles of Britain, though more modest, trace solstices with precision. Thousands of miles apart, without shared language or travel, these builders reached for the same heavens. It is as though the sky itself was a universal script, one understood by every culture. The temples were pens writing upon the earth, the alignments their sentences. When one stood before a temple and looked upward, they were reading a text, written not in ink, but in stars. And what does this reveal about us? It tells us that no matter where human beings lived, no matter the color of their skin, or the gods they worshipped, They all carried the same yearning, the desire to find patterns in the cosmos, to feel at home beneath the infinite. Forgotten dreams beneath. Stone, close your eyes and imagine the dreams of those who built the temples. A stonemason in ancient Egypt lifts a block heavier than his own body, straining with the help of ropes and fellow workers. As sweat stings his eyes, he thinks not only of the labor, but of the reward, the eternal monument that will carry his civilization's soul to the stars. Far away in Mesoamerica, a Maya artisan carves glyphs into stone. Each symbol is a fragment of a greater story, a myth of gods who walked among men, of serpents who slithered from the heavens to teach wisdom. He knows that his work will endure, speaking long after his voice has faded. And in the Andes, an Inca farmer pauses to look up at the night sky. To him, the dark patches of the Milky Way are not empty voids, but living creatures. Llamas, serpents, foxes. His people build temples and shrines that align not only with bright stars, but with these dark constellations. The cosmos is alive, and the temples are not just monuments, but meeting places where heaven and earth greet one another. All these forgotten dreams lie beneath the stones, like seeds buried in the soil. They wait for us to uncover them, to water them with our wonder, and to let them bloom again in memory, the weight of time. Yet time does not stand still. As centuries passed, the empires crumbled, the temples fell silent, the jungles swallowed them, the deserts buried them, the mountains eroded them. What was once vibrant ritual became silence. Picture the temple at Tikal when the city was abandoned. No priests ascend its stairs, no fires glow in its chambers. Vines curl around its stones, owls nest in its corners, jaguars prowl nearby. The stars still shine above, but no human eyes rise to meet them. And yet, the temple does not despair. It continues to stand, as though keeping vigil for the day when humanity will once again remember its purpose. This is the paradox of the forgotten temples. Though built for people, they endure beyond people. They remind us that even in our absence, the universe continues to turn, the stars continue to burn, and the night continues to keep watch. The echo of ritual. Have you ever stood in a place so old that you could almost feel the echoes of voices? The air seems charged, as though the past lingers just beyond reach. At Stonehenge, tourists shuffle between the stones, yet many claim they sense something more, a vibration, a hush, a presence that cannot be explained. It is as if the rituals performed there left an imprint, a memory that cannot be erased. The chanting, the fires, the offerings. Though centuries have passed, their echoes remain stitched into the fabric of the stones. The same can be said for temples in every corner of the world. At Angkor Wat, the sun still rises, as it did for the Khmer. At Luxor, the shadows still fall, as they did for the Egyptians. At Chichen Itza, the serpent of light still slithers down the steps during the equinox. The rituals continue, not by human will, but by the design of the cosmos itself. The universe participates in the ceremony, ensuring it will never truly end. The sky is an eternal witness. Above all, the temples teach us this. The sky has always been watching. Stars we see tonight are the same stars seen by builders thousands of years ago. The constellations are unchanged. Their myths still alive, even if told in different languages. Consider the star Sirius. To the Egyptians, it was the herald of the Nile's flood. To the Dogon people of Africa, it was the seat of sacred knowledge. To us, it is simply the brightest star, but the light of Sirius is the same. The difference lies in us, how we interpret it, how we weave it into our stories. The forgotten temples remind us that while civilizations rise and fall, the sky remains. It is eternal, patient, unchanging, and in its permanence, we find both comfort and humility. A bedtime truth as we near the soft closing of this story. Let us reflect on what these forgotten temples have shown us. They remind us that human beings, though fragile and fleeting, have always been seekers of meaning. We have always looked up, searching for guidance, comfort, and connection. The temples stand as proof that our ancestors found answers in the stars. Perhaps we, too, are invited to do the same. As you lie here now, drifting toward rest, remember that the night sky outside your window is the same one that watched over Angkor, Chichen Itza, Luxor, Tikal, and Stonehenge. The stars do not forget. The temples may crumble, but the heavens endure. And in this endurance, we find peace. So close your eyes. Imagine the forgotten temples, standing silently under the stars, their stones bathed in silver light. Imagine the priests who once watched, the artisans who once built, the people who once gathered. Their voices may be gone, but their wonder is alive within you. For as long as the stars shine, no temple is truly forgotten. The journey we have taken together has carried us across deserts and jungles, across mountains and rivers, across oceans and ages. We have stood beneath the pyramids of Egypt, wandered through the jungle temples of the Maya, felt the wind at Stonehenge, and watched the light of the sun carve its way through the chambers of Abu Simbel. And through it all, one truth has guided us. The temples were not simply structures of stone, but instruments of time, memory, and starlight. Now, as our story draws gently toward its end, let us linger for a final time among these guardians of the sky. Let us feel their presence and allow them to carry us into a state of calm reflection, where history becomes dream and dream becomes sleep. Temples in twilight, picture the scene. A forgotten temple rests in silence as the sun sets behind it. Vines hang from broken walls. Owls stir from their nests, and the last golden rays bathe the carvings in light. Slowly, the stars awaken one by one, until the entire sky glitters like a sea of silver. Though no human worshippers remain, the temple is not empty. It is full of memory, full of echoes. Its stones hold the weight of countless prayers, chants, and offerings. The temple itself has become a witness, a silent recorder of the human desire to connect earth to sky. And in this twilight, you too stand among the ruins. The air is still, the world hushed. You feel not alone, but accompanied by all who came before, by the builders, by the dreamers, by the storytellers who once wove their myths into the constellations above. The temples do not fade in twilight. They glow brighter, not with torches or fire, but with the enduring flame of meaning, the eternal dance of stars. Throughout history, the heavens have moved in their perfect, patient rhythm. Stars rise, stars set. Constellations wheel across the dome of night, the same cycle that guided the Egyptians, the Maya, the Inca, the Chinese, and the Greeks continue still. And so, the forgotten temples remain aligned, not only to stones on the ground, but to lights in the heavens. Even when they crumble, even when their walls collapse, their original intention is not lost. Look up at Orion, and you are looking at the same starry figure that inspired the pyramids. Watch the rising sun on the solstice, and you participate in the same cosmic event that lit the heart of Karnak. Stand at Chichen Itza during the equinox, and the serpent of light still slides down the staircase. As it has done for 1,000 years, the temples remind us of something profound, that while civilizations are temporary, the sky is eternal, and in this eternity there is comfort, the legacy of sleep and stars. Why do we tell such stories at night when the world grows quiet and the stars begin their slow journey overhead? Perhaps because the night itself is a kind of temple. Its silence is sacred, its shadows mysterious, its stars an altar of light. As you lie down to sleep, you are like the ancient dreamers who rested within sight of their sacred monuments. They too closed their eyes beneath the stars, letting the steady rhythms of the cosmos calm their fears. They too sought reassurance in the eternal. The temples watched over them then, and in a way they still watch over us now. Though we may no longer climb their steps or light their fires, their stones continue to hold the memory of human wonder. Their alignments continue to speak in the universal language of the sky, and their stories continue to remind us that we are never alone in the night. A universal connection from the Nile to the Andes, from the Yucatan to the plains of Britain. One thread unites all forgotten temples. The longing to connect with something beyond ourselves. The ancients looked up and saw the same stars you see now. They wondered the same questions. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Where do we go when the night ends? The temples were their answers. Not final answers, but living ones. Answers carved in stone, written in light, whispered in the language of wind and shadow. Answers that did not erase mystery, but gave it shape, gave it beauty. And so, when you close your eyes tonight, you join a timeless lineage of dreamers. You share in the same comfort they felt, knowing that above you, the eternal heavens keep watch. The final vigil now. Let us take one last walk among the forgotten temples. Imagine standing before a ruin, its stones half buried, its carvings faded. You place your hand on the cool rock, and in that touch, thousands of years dissolve. You hear the chants of priests, the murmurs of crowds, the crackle of fire. You look up, and above the ruin, the same stars shine, unfaded, undiminished, eternal. The temple is no longer abandoned. It is alive, because you have remembered it. Every gaze upward, every story told, every dream dreamt keeps it alive. Forgotten temples are never truly forgotten. Not while we keep the stars in our sight, not while we whisper their names in the quiet of night. So, as you drift toward rest, imagine those temples watching, as they always have, as they always will. Silent, steadfast, eternal guardians of the bond between earth and sky. A soothing farewell. And now, dear dreamer, it is time to let go. Let the temples stand their eternal vigil while you close your eyes. Let the stars continue their ancient dance while you drift into sleep. You are safe. You are part of a story that stretches back to the dawn of time. You are joined by countless generations who once lay beneath the same stars, comforted by the same watchful monuments. The temples remain, the stars remain, and you too will remain, part of this great rhythm, this eternal song of night and sky. So rest now. Sleep beneath the forgotten temples, dream beneath the eternal stars, and awaken knowing that you too are watched over by the same guardians who have kept humanity safe since time began. The story is complete, but the night continues, and in that night, the temples still watch. The night sky is vast, eternal, and infinite, yet always familiar. The more we look upward, the more we realize that our ancestors never ceased to wonder. Even when temples stood half forgotten, covered by forests or buried beneath sand, their purpose did not vanish. They remained part of the living cosmos, and their silent stones still whispered to those who dared to listen. Let us drift once more into that silence, not to repeat what we have already learned, but to expand it. For there are temples beyond the well-known, sanctuaries that lie in shadow, overlooked by history, yet still aligned to the heavens. These lesser-known places form the hidden verses of the same eternal poem. The desert guardians, far away from the grandeur of Giza, smaller Egyptian temples lie scattered across forgotten sands. Crumbled shrines, little more than doorways in the dunes, still face east, waiting for the sunrise that will never fail to appear. Imagine a lone traveler finding one of these shrines. He sits among its broken stones, lights a small fire, and lies back to rest. The desert is cool at night, and the stars blaze above like diamonds scattered upon black velvet. He does not know the gods who once ruled here, nor the rituals once spoken. Yet as he closes his eyes, he feels the same peace those ancient worshippers once felt. For the alignment remains, the stars are the same, and the universe continues its vigil. The temples beneath the jungle in the heart of Southeast Asia. Some temples have been completely swallowed by trees. At Ta Prohm in Cambodia, giant roots clutch the walls like the hands of time itself. Once, this temple was alive with monks, prayers, and chants. Today, it is alive with silence, yet even this silence has a rhythm, as though the temple still breathes. On certain nights, when the moonlight falls just right through the broken roof, it illuminates carvings of celestial dancers. These apsaras seem to move in the silver light, reminding us that the temple was always meant to bridge the earthly and the divine. As you imagine this scene, allow yourself to rest in its stillness. Even in ruin, the temple continues to watch. Even in silence, it continues to sing. Stones beneath the sea, not all temples remain above ground. Some lie beneath the waves, forgotten not by time alone but by the rising oceans. Off the coast of Japan, at Yonaguni, massive stone formations, some believed to be ruins, sit beneath the sea. Are they temples? Or are they simply natural wonders? To the dreamer, it does not matter. Imagine divers descending into the blue depths, their lamps cutting through the water. They drift among carved-looking steps, silent corridors, and massive blocks that resemble gateways. Above them, the surface shimmers like the mirrored sky. Even here, beneath the sea, the stones seem aligned to some greater order. and as the divers ascend, bubbles rising toward the light. They feel what all who enter forgotten temples feel, a sense of humility, of awe, of connection to something larger than themselves. The eternal watch. What unites desert shrines, jungle ruins, and sunken stones is not their size or beauty, but their purpose. They remind us that sleep and death, night and day, time and eternity, all are bound by the same rhythms of the cosmos. For as long as the stars remain, the temples continue their watch, and as long as we remember them, they are not truly forgotten. So let us rest once more beneath their gaze. The stones are steady, the stars are patient, the night is kind. You are safe here, watched over by guardians, both seen and unseen. High above the valleys where rivers curl like silver ribbons, where clouds drift lazily across blue horizons, lie temples built not in jungles or deserts, but on the very bones of mountains. To climb to them is to climb out of the world itself, leaving behind the noise of ordinary life and entering a realm where the air is thin, sharp, and filled with silence. The stairway to the sky, imagine a path cut into the stone, winding upward with endless steps. Your feet grow tired, but your spirit grows lighter, as though the mountain itself lifts you higher. Along the way, prayer flags flutter in the wind, their colors fading, but their messages still carried to the heavens with every gust. Each step is a heartbeat, each breath a prayer. At last, you reach the summit. Before you stands a temple, simple yet radiant in its endurance. Its walls are weathered, its roof kissed by frost. Inside, the air smells of incense, faint but enduring. Outside, the world stretches in every direction. Mountains like waves frozen in stone, clouds like oceans of drifting white, the sky a vast and endless sea. The alignment is clear. When the sun rises, its first light enters directly through the temple's doorway, painting the floor with fire. When the moon is full, its silver beams cast long shadows down the mountain path. The temple is no accident. It is a bridge between the earth and the infinite. The silent monks now picture monks of long ago, robed in saffron or grey, sitting in stillness before dawn. They do not speak, for words would disturb the purity of the mountain's silence. Their breath fogs in the cold air, their eyes half closed, their minds turned inward and upward. To them, the stars were not distant fires, but companions. Each one had meaning, each constellation a story. They saw not chaos, but a map, a cosmic scripture that whispered truths to those patient enough to read. And when they lay down to sleep in their narrow cells, they believed themselves watched not only by their brothers in the temple, but by the stars above. Sleep was not an escape from the world, but a continuation of the universe's rhythm. The bell of dawn at sunrise, the great bell of the mountain temple would sound. Its voice rolled down the valleys, echoing off cliffs, waking the world below. To the farmers in distant villages, it was a signal to rise and begin their day. But to the monks, it was a call to merge with the cosmos once more. The bell itself was tuned with care. Struck at the right moment, its vibration matched the hum of the earth. A resonance that travelers claimed they could feel in their very bones. Some said the bell did not simply mark time. It aligned the soul, the pilgrim's rest. Now imagine yourself as a pilgrim, reaching this temple after many days of travel. You are weary, your body aches, yet the sight of the temple fills you with peace. The monks welcome you, offering tea brewed from mountain herbs. The warmth spreads through you, and as night falls, you are given a place to rest. You lie down beneath a thin blanket, the stone floor cool beneath you. Through a small window, the stars watch. The temple hums with quiet life. The crackle of a fire, the rustle of robes, the faint chanting of a prayer. Slowly, your body loosens, your breath steadies, and you surrender to sleep. Even as you drift away, you feel the temple holding you, the mountain supporting you, the sky above embracing you. You are no longer just yourself. You are part of the eternal vigil, part of the ancient rhythm. The legacy of heights. When we leave the mountain temple in our imagination, we do not leave its wisdom behind. For these places remind us that elevation is not only physical, but spiritual. To rise above is to gain perspective. To rest in silence is to hear the quiet music of the stars. The mountain temples, like all others, keep watch not through sight alone, but through presence. They are steady, enduring, patient, and as we sleep tonight, they remain where they have always been, guardians of the heights, whispering to the skies, keeping the rhythm of dawn and dusk alive. If the mountain temples reach toward the heavens, then the underground sanctuaries turned inward, into the womb of the earth itself. These were not places built to be seen from afar. No spires pierced the sky. No flags waved in the wind. Instead, their entrances were hidden, sometimes through narrow fissures in rock, sometimes behind waterfalls, sometimes within the darkened mouths of caves. To step inside was to leave the world of sunlight and enter another realm, cool, shadowed, and eternal. The carved silence. Imagine descending a stone stairway, torchlight flickering on walls that glisten with mineral veins. As you move deeper, the sound of the outside world fades until only your own breath remains. Then, ahead, a chamber opens. Its ceiling is impossibly high, lost in shadow, and carved pillars rise like a forest of stone. Here, artisans worked not to build, but to reveal. They carved temples directly from living rock, chiseling away everything unnecessary until the sacred form emerged. Each wall was covered in symbols, each column a silent hymn. The earth itself had been transformed into a cathedral. The flicker of flame-unlike mountain or desert temples that welcomed the sun, these underground sanctuaries lived by fire. Oil lamps flickered, their flames reflecting in polished stone. The light shifted constantly, making gods carved on the walls seem to breathe, smile, or frown. At night, the flames became the stars of the underworld, small, fragile lights in an infinite dark. For the monks who slept in these caverns, dreams came heavy, as though the weight of the earth pressed down upon them. Yet those dreams were not burdens, they were journeys. They believed that in sleep, the soul could descend deeper still, moving through layers of earth and spirit, until it touched the eternal core, the hidden choirs. Some of these temples were designed with acoustics so perfect that even a whisper traveled like a chant. When monks gathered to sing in the dark, their voices echoed endlessly, surrounding them like an invisible sea. Imagine lying there in the blackness, your body stretched on a stone bed, your ears filled with voices that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The chants would blur the line between waking and dreaming, guiding you gently into sleep. Even now, centuries later, explorers who step into these spaces describe a strange presence, as if the echoes of those voices still linger in the stone. The guardians of darkness. In many underground temples, statues of guardians line the passages. Fierce faces, wide eyes, hands clutching weapons of stone. At first, they seemed meant to intimidate intruders, but those who studied them understood differently. They were protectors of the sleepers. For when night fell and the monks laid down their heads, these guardians stood watch, not of flesh, not of blood, but of stone and faith. They marked the boundary between the world of rest and the world beyond. To dream within their gaze was to be shielded from chaos. The pilgrim's descent. Picture yourself entering one of these caverns after a long journey. Outside, the day is fading. The forest hums with insects. The air smells of moss. You step into the cave, and instantly the world shifts. The sound softens, the light dims, and the cool air wraps around you. Guided by monks, you follow the tunnels until you reach the sanctuary. You are offered food, simple but warm, and shown a resting place carved directly into the stone. The bed is hard, but strangely comforting, as though the earth itself cradles you. When you close your eyes, you feel safe. Above you is not the sky, but countless tons of rock. Yet it does not feel like a prison. It feels like protection, a reminder that sleep is a return to origins, to the womb of creation. Eternal rest. Some underground temples were not only places of prayer, but also of burial. Monks who passed away were entombed within, their bodies becoming part of the temple itself. Their spirits, it was believed, continued the vigil. Thus, when pilgrims slept there, they slept among ancestors. Far from fearful, this presence was soothing. It was as if the dead themselves stood guard, ensuring peace through the long night. Even today, when we enter a cave and feel an unexplainable hush, perhaps it is that memory, the echo of countless generations who found sleep beneath the earth, trusting in stone to protect them. The lesson of darkness. When we leave the underground temple in imagination, we carry with us its wisdom, that rest does not always come from reaching upward. Sometimes it comes from returning inward, to stillness, to silence, to the embrace of what lies beneath. The underground temples remind us that even in the darkest places, light exists. Even in silence, songs linger. And even in the depths, sleep is watched over, tenderly, eternally. If water temples shimmered with reflection, and underground temples embraced silence, then the temples of fire blazed with life. These shrines were not gentle or hidden. They roared, crackled, and pulsed with a restless energy that never truly slept. To step near one was to feel both awe and unease, as if standing before a being that could never be tamed. Eternal flames across ancient lands. Certain fires were said to burn without end. Some rose from natural gas vents that flickered ceaselessly from the earth's breath, while others were carefully tended by priests and acolytes who passed the flame from generation to generation. These were not ordinary fires. They were believed to be the living essence of gods. eternal witnesses of human prayer. At night, when the world outside fell dark, these flames glowed brighter. Pilgrims would sit in silence around them, their faces lit with orange light, watching the fire dance like a storyteller. The flames twisted into shapes: serpents, birds, faces, images that lived for only an instant before vanishing into smoke. Sleeping by the fire, imagine resting near such a flame. Your body lies on cool stone, but your eyelids glow with the flicker of light, even when closed. The crackle of wood or hiss of gas becomes a lullaby, unpredictable, yet strangely soothing. Dreams rise quickly here, for the fire is said to carry thoughts upward, transforming them into visions. Ancient sleepers believed that in such places, their dreams were purified, nightmares dissolved in smoke, and only clear, radiant dreams remained. Messages from the divine. To sleep by the fire was to invite guidance. The fire keepers. Every flame had its guardians. They were often called keepers of the light, men and women whose lives revolved around tending the sacred blaze. By day they gathered wood or oils. By night they watched, prayed, and whispered to the flame as if to a friend. For them, sleep was not absence, but communion. Many keepers would drift into half-dreams beside the fire, their eyes heavy, yet their hands ready to stir embers back to life. They believed that their souls too were embers, kept glowing by the presence of the divine flame. Festivals of flame in certain seasons. Whole communities gathered for nights of fire worship. Bonfires blazed on hillsides. Torches lined the streets, and temples shone with 100 flames. People danced around the fires, sang songs, and told stories deep into the night. When exhaustion overtook them, they lay down beside the glowing coals. The stars above and the fires below mirrored each other, so that sleepers seemed to rest between two heavens, one of starlight, one of flame. Children dreamed of flying, elders dreamed of ancestors, and all felt protected, as though the fire would burn away any harm before it could reach them. Fire as teacher, unlike water, which soothed, or stone, which sheltered. Fire taught in flashes. It showed how fragile life could be, how quickly beauty vanished, how easily darkness returned if the flame was neglected. Sleeping in its glow, pilgrims learned the balance of vigilance and rest. They discovered that even in slumber, a part of the spirit must stay awake, watchful, ready, like the flame itself, the dance of shadows. Of the most haunting memories described in ancient writings was the sight of shadows cast by temple fires. As flames rose and fell, the shadows of statues and pillars seemed to move, as though the gods themselves walked among the sleeping. Some believed these shadows were the souls of dreamers made visible. Others said they were guardians, keeping watch as bodies rested. Whatever their nature, the shadows made the temples feel alive. More than stone, more than fire, something between worlds. Death and renewal in many fire temples. Pyres stood ready. Death was not seen as an ending, but as a return to flame. Bodies were given to the fire, and smoke carried the soul skyward. For the living who slept nearby, this was not frightening. Instead, it was reassuring. Fire consumed, but also renewed. It transformed. To rest in its glow was to accept that change, that endless cycle of burning and rebirth. The lullaby of embers as the night wore on. Fires burned low. Flames became glowing embers, soft and red like beating hearts. In this gentle phase, the fire whispered more than roared. Its crackle was subtle, like whispers of ancestors. Sleep deepened here. Bodies relaxed. Dreams softened. For a moment, the fire seemed to rest as well, though it never truly died. The message of fire. When dawn came and sunlight replaced flame, pilgrims awoke with ash in their hair and warmth still lingering in their bones. They carried with them the lesson that light must be tended, both in temples and in their own lives. Fire temples taught that rest is not passive. It is active, like tending embers. To sleep well is to protect one's own inner flame, ensuring it will rise again with the coming day. If fire temples roared with heat and flame, the temples of wind were altogether different. They did not blaze or glow. Instead they whispered, whistled, and sang. Their walls were not always stone, but often open colonnades, arches, and vast courtyards where the air itself could become the priest. To step into one was to feel motion. Even in stillness, the wind carried life through every corridor. The invisible presence, unlike water or fire, wind had no form. You could not see it, could not hold it. Yet in temples dedicated to it, you always felt it. Draped banners fluttered, chimes rang, and carved flutes embedded in walls hummed as air rushed through. Even silence was never complete. At night, when pilgrims rested on mats or beneath colonnades, the wind became their lullaby, a soft sigh one moment, a gentle whistle the next, sometimes rising into a hollow moan that felt both eerie and comforting. They would fall asleep knowing that something unseen surrounded them, something alive and eternal, sleeping under open skies. Unlike the shadowed caves or glowing shrines of flame, wind temples often had no roofs at all. Sleepers lay under open skies, the stars above like lanterns scattered across black velvet. Breezes moved gently across their faces, carrying scents of incense, flowers, and sometimes even the far-off sea. It was here that dreamers felt most connected to the heavens. The line between air and spirit blurred, and many believed their souls rose like kites or birds, drifting far beyond the temple, while their bodies rested peacefully below. The song of the wind temples were instruments in themselves. Architects designed them with narrow corridors, hollow stones, and hidden flutes that turned every breeze into music. When night fell and fires were dimmed, the air came alive with sound. Imagine lying down as the temple sings. High tones shimmer like distant bells. Low moans roll through arches like the deep hum of the earth. Together, they weave an invisible symphony, as though the gods were breathing through the structure itself. Children would fall asleep quickly here, lulled by songs not sung by human throats, but by the air itself. Elders drifted into dreams of flight, feeling their souls rise on invisible wings. Guardians of breath, though the wind could never be chained, temples honored it with statues of winged beings, sometimes angels, sometimes birds, sometimes faceless guardians with robes carved as though forever flowing. These figures lined sleeping halls, arms extended, wings unfurled. To rest beneath their gaze was to believe you too were lifted, carried by unseen wings through the night. No storm could reach you, for the guardian's breath would scatter it. The wind in dreams in wind temples often carried motion. Sleepers dreamt of flying, of being lifted by invisible hands, of soaring over mountains and seas. Some dreamt of traveling back to distant lands, or forward to future days, borne by gusts that crossed time itself. Priests taught that the wind was a messenger. It carried news from distant lands, carried prayers upward, carried souls across thresholds. To dream of wind was to receive guidance, often in fleeting symbols, like leaves blown across your path. Pilgrims, nights travelers, who arrived at such temples often came weary, carrying dust on their skin and sand in their hair. The first gift they received was not food or fire, but breeze. Priests would fan them, wash them with air scented by herbs, and lead them to sleeping platforms. The night air cooled their skin, loosened their tired muscles, and whispered in their ears. They fell asleep as if the world itself had exhaled, sighing them into rest. Whispers of the ancestors. In certain traditions, the wind was said to carry voices of the dead. When pilgrims rested in the temple and the night winds rose, they believed it was ancestors speaking, sometimes offering comfort, sometimes warnings, sometimes nothing but presence. Dreamers reported hearing names in the wind, or fragments of songs long forgotten. For many, this was proof that they were never alone. Even in sleep, the voices of those who had gone before brushed against them like feathers. Storms in the night knot. All nights were gentle. Sometimes winds turned fierce. Curtains tore, chimes shrieked, and pillars groaned. Pilgrims would huddle together, eyes wide, until priests reminded them storms were also prayers, only louder. Even in such nights, sleep came eventually, fitful, turbulent, filled with visions of thunder and lightning. Yet when dawn broke, the air was fresh and clean, as though the storm had carried away all burdens. The gift of breath. When morning arrived, pilgrims awoke with the simplest, deepest awareness. Breath itself was sacred. They rose slowly, filling their lungs, understanding that each inhale was a gift, each exhale a prayer. Wind temples taught that sleep was not just a pause in life. It was a rhythm, like breathing itself. To rest was to inhale peace, to exhale worry, to be carried gently in the endless current of air that moved through all things. If wind temples opened the spirit to the invisible, the temples of stars lifted it directly into the heavens. These were sanctuaries not hidden in caves or roaring with fire, but poised in alignment with the cosmos. To stand within them was to stand inside a map of the sky, where every wall, every stone, every opening framed a star. At night, they were not merely temples. They became observatories of the soul. The architecture of the heavens. Imagine a great courtyard with 4 gates, each aligned perfectly with the cardinal directions. At its center stands a tall stone pillar, casting shadows that mark the hours by day. But at night, this pillar points silently upward, toward a sky littered with fire. Every part of the temple is intentional. Narrow passageways lead the eye to the rising of certain stars. Ceilings have holes that frame constellations, like windows to eternity. Entire buildings are tilted or carved to catch the first light of solstices, equinoxes, or the shimmering dance of Venus. For those who entered, the temple itself was a mirror of the sky, sleeping beneath the constellations. Pilgrims did not hide in shadows here. They lay openly in courtyards, sometimes on mats, sometimes on bare stone. Above them stretched constellations, brighter than any flame, more constant than any guardian. To fall asleep in a star temple was to drift into the arms of eternity. The slow turning of the heavens became the rhythm of dreams. One star rose, another set, and dreamers felt themselves lifted, carried across the vast night sky. The North Star's vigil above all. The North Star held power. In many cultures, it was called the anchor of the heavens. Unmoving while everything else circled it, priests taught that it was also the anchor of the soul. Sleepers believed that as they dreamed, no matter how far they drifted through visions, the North Star held them safe. It was the cosmic guardian, the eternal flame of the sky. Even today, when we look up and see it steady, we feel that same quiet comfort, that no matter how the world spins, something endures. The voices of stars. Some star temples were built with polished bowls of water placed in the center of courtyards. At night, the stars reflected in these still pools, quivering softly with every breath of wind. Pilgrims would gaze into them before sleep, believing they could see the future in the trembling lights. When they finally closed their eyes, the reflections followed them inward, shaping dreams of distant lands, unborn children, or paths yet to walk. The stars, they said, spoke in whispers, not in words, but in images scattered across sleep. The priests of night in these temples. Priests were not guardians of fire or keepers of wind, but readers of the sky. They watched the heavens all night, mapping movements, marking patterns, telling stories. Sleepers lay nearby, listening as the priests recited constellations like lullabies. This is Orion the hunter. These are the sisters of Pleiades. This is the river Eridanus. The rhythm of names lulled pilgrims into dreams, and in those dreams, the constellations became alive. Giants walking, hunters striding, rivers flowing endlessly. The festival of falling stars. Once a year, when meteor showers streaked across the sky, star temples became places of wonder. Hundreds gathered, lying shoulder to shoulder across the courtyards. The heavens rained light. Sleep was strange on such nights, half waking, half dreaming, as pilgrims gasped at streaks of brilliance. Some believed these were souls falling back to earth. Others said they were wishes taking flight. Children drifted off mid-skyward gaze, their dreams filled with sparks. Elders whispered blessings, believing falling stars carried prayers upward faster than words. Dreams of the infinite. To sleep in a star temple was not only to dream of the world, but of worlds beyond. Pilgrims imagined drifting past the moon, past planets, past suns greater than their own. In their dreams, they walked among galaxies, each step 1,000 light years. They woke with awe, humbled by the immensity, yet strangely comforted. For if the soul could dream across infinity, then life too was part of something endless. The silence of stars, unlike the roaring fire or the singing wind, stars spoke with silence. Their light traveled quietly, across ages, to reach the eyes of sleepers. That silence was profound. Pilgrims would often fall asleep, not to sound but to stillness, broken only by the rustle of robes or the soft sigh of breathing. In such quiet, the stars seemed louder than any voice. Eternal, patient, watchful. Lessons from the heavens. When dawn came and the stars faded, the temples returned to stone. But the lessons remained. That rest is a part of the same rhythm that moves planets and suns. That in sleep, we join the turning of the cosmos. That even the smallest dream is held within the vast net of the universe. To sleep beneath, high above the canopy of forests, beyond the curves of rivers, and across the windswept plains, the night sky shimmered like an ancient scroll. Its glittering words were written in constellations, patterns that had been traced and retraced by countless generations who came before. For those who built temples, carved monuments, and marked their calendars by stone, the heavens were not distant or abstract. They were alive, breathing with meaning, pulsing with rhythms that echoed within the human spirit. Imagine lying on your back upon a cool stone surface, just outside the courtyard of a forgotten temple. The walls around you rise like guardians, weathered but steadfast, their carvings softened by centuries of rain and sun. Through gaps in the roof, the stars are framed, silver fire set against the deep velvet of night. The air smells faintly of moss and old incense, and a breeze whistles gently through the cracks. You are not alone. Once, long ago, priests and stargazers stood here too, heads tilted upward, eyes following the same celestial paths. Their breath would have mingled with yours, rising into the dark in small clouds of reverence. These temples, no matter where they were found, be it the jungles of Mesoamerica, the deserts of Egypt, or the high plains of Mesopotamia, served a shared purpose. They were not only houses for the divine, but instruments of timekeeping, stone aligned with sky. Doorways framed the rising sun. Windows caught the light of particular stars at precise moments of the year. To walk through such structures was to walk within a calendar, each step guided by the heavens above. But more than utility, these alignments carried mystery. Why should humanity care so deeply about tracing the dance of stars? Why carve entire temples from rock just to capture the flicker of a solstice dawn? Perhaps, beneath it all, the answer lies in a universal longing. The sky offered comfort, consistency, and story. It was both a map and a lullaby. When storms shook the earth, or wars tore through kingdoms, the stars still rose and set, unbothered, unchanged. To gaze upon them was to remember continuity in the face of chaos. In forgotten times, the watchers of the sky whispered stories to those who gathered around them. They said that the stars were the eyes of ancestors, peering down to guide the living. They claimed that certain alignments opened gateways between the world of flesh and the world of spirit. And they told that the very act of sleeping beneath these stars was a sacred ritual. For dreams carried messages woven from the fabric of the night itself. Picture a family gathered at the base of such a temple on a night of festival. Torches burn low, casting flickering shadows on carved stone. Children fight sleep as their elders recount tales of gods crossing the heavens. A storyteller points to a particular cluster of stars. explaining how their temple was built to honor that alignment, and how once a year, a beam of moonlight touches a hidden altar deep inside. To the listeners, this is not merely astronomy. It is magic, mystery, and memory bound together. The smooth stone beneath your body feels alive, warmed from the day's sun, yet cooled by night's breath. The longer you gaze upward, the more the stars seem to move, not just in their eternal sweep from east to west, but in subtle pulses, as though they are winking at you, inviting you to listen more deeply. You realize that these temples were not silent relics. They were instruments, and the music they played was time itself. And so, as people drifted into slumber within temple courtyards, or at the edges of sacred plazas, they were held not only by the walls, but by the sky. Their dreams were painted with constellations, their breathing slowed in rhythm with the turning earth, and their hearts beat in harmony with cycles far older than civilization. It is in this gentle alignment, stone and star, dream and sky, that we find the deepest comfort. Though empires rose and fell, though languages shifted and were forgotten, though names of gods came and went, the heavens remained. And so, in the stillness of sleep beneath forgotten temples, humanity felt itself tethered to eternity. Tonight, as you drift between wakefulness and rest, imagine yourself within one of those temples. The carvings are faint but present. The air is heavy with silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the call of a distant owl. Above you, the sky remains as it always has, vast, mysterious, eternal. You close your eyes, and in that moment, you are both yourself and every dreamer who has ever laid beneath those stars. The temples may be forgotten, their rituals may be silent, but their purpose, their quiet, steady watching of the skies, continues within you. For as you surrender to rest, you too become part of the eternal dance of stars and stones. Night has fallen deeper now. The horizon has dissolved into shadow, and the last glow of the sun lingers only faintly, a memory painted in the west. Overhead, the stars burn brighter, no longer shy against the fading dusk, but bold, countless, infinite. It is as though the heavens themselves have lowered, leaning closer to the earth, eager to share their secrets with those who are willing to look. The forgotten temples, silent yet unyielding, stand like ancient listeners beneath this celestial dome. Their stones, darkened by age, seem to inhale the starlight, absorbing each flicker, as though gathering the wisdom of the cosmos. Once, these very walls echoed with chants, prayers, and the footsteps of priests carrying offerings. Now they are hushed, but the silence is not empty. It is rich, filled with the residue of devotion. Imagine stepping into the heart of one such temple. The air is cool, touched with the faint dampness of centuries. Each corridor feels like a journey deeper into the body of the earth itself. Yet the architecture insists you look upward. Slits in the ceiling allow shafts of starlight to fall across the stone floor, creating moving patterns that dance as the night progresses. These patterns are no accident. They were designed with precision, ensuring that on particular nights, the solstices, the equinoxes, the turning points of the year, the light would strike a sacred altar or illuminate a carving of a god. To the ancients, This was proof that the universe spoke to them directly. The stars were not distant fires. They were messengers, timing their journeys so that humanity could read the language of the cosmos. Each alignment was a promise that the seasons would return, that crops would grow, that life would endure. But beyond the practicality, there was a poetry to this. As priests and astronomers observed the sky, they wove myths to explain its motions. The rising of a star might symbolize a divine birth. Its fading might represent a god's descent into the underworld. The slow turn of constellations became a story, retold each night for those who cared to listen. You lie back now on the smooth temple stone, and above you, the constellations seem to gather, forming not just shapes, but memories. There is Orion, the eternal hunter, stretching his bow. There is the Pleiades, a delicate cluster of light that cultures across the world, once connected to sisters, maidens, or doves. And there, glowing faintly, is Sirius, the star that guided the flooding of the Nile, carrying with it the promise of renewal. The ancients believed that to sleep beneath these stars was to open one's spirit to their messages. Dreams were not random wanderings of the mind. They were conversations with the cosmos. A dream of flight might mean the gods wished you to rise in courage. A dream of water might mean prosperity was coming, or perhaps a warning of storms ahead. In this way, temples became more than stone. They became thresholds between waking and dreaming. Picture a priest lying here centuries ago, wrapped in simple cloth, his breath steady as he surrendered to sleep. The stars above him burned with the same brilliance as they do for you now. Perhaps he dreamed of the future, of harvests, of wars, of the lives of his people. Perhaps, without realizing, he dreamed of you, another soul in another time, gazing upward from the same sacred place. The rhythm of night deepens. A soft wind brushes through the cracks in the stone, carrying with it scents of earth and distant rain. Somewhere, far beyond the temple, an animal calls into the darkness, its cry echoing across the valley. Yet here, in the quiet of the courtyard, everything feels still, as though the world itself has paused to listen. And in this stillness, you notice something extraordinary. The longer you gaze at the sky, the more it seems to breathe. The stars do not only shimmer, they pulse, softly, like the heartbeat of a giant being. This too the ancients must have seen. This too must have convinced them that the heavens were alive, watching, whispering, guiding. The thought is soothing. You are not alone in your slumber. Above you is the vastness of time itself, patient and eternal. The same stars that cradled kings in their sleep, that comforted travelers, crossing endless deserts, that guided sailors across treacherous seas. Those very same stars are cradling you now. You close your eyes, and the temple stone feels less like stone and more like a gentle raft, carrying you across an ocean of dreams. The chants of long-forgotten priests drift faintly into your ears. The flicker of ancient fires warms your skin, and the stars, always the stars, lean closer, their light wrapping you in a blanket that no empire, no age, no shadow can ever take away. The forgotten temples may no longer ring with prayer, but their purpose is not gone. They continue their watch, standing steady beneath the eternal dome. And in this moment, with your breath soft and your mind drifting, you too join their vigil. Together, stone and sleeper, you become part of the great silence that listens to the whispers of the night sky. And so, as you drift further into rest, know this: you are as eternal as the stars, as enduring as the stone, as sacred as the forgotten temple itself. The night deepens, and the silence of the forgotten temple thickens like a veil. It feels as though time itself has slowed, allowing each breath, each flicker of starlight, each whisper of wind to stretch endlessly. The stars above remain your quiet companions, their glow steady and eternal. Yet here, among the ancient stones, they feel closer, almost tangible. These temples were never mere shelters of ritual. They were instruments, carved with purpose to echo the rhythms of the sky. Every arch, every stairway, every shadow cast by moonlight held meaning. When you stand at the temple's threshold, it is as though you are stepping into a clock designed not to tell hours, but to mark eternity. Think of the builders who shaped these walls. They carried stones with aching hands, guided not only by strength, but by faith that what they built would endure, that each rock set upon another would become a message to the future. Some of them may never have seen the temple completed, yet they worked with devotion, for they believed the gods and stars themselves looked upon their labor, and so they carved. In corners hidden from casual sight, figures emerged from the stone, birds mid-flight, serpents coiling, suns radiating their light. These carvings were not decoration, but reminders. Each symbol carried the memory of a story, a lesson, a piece of wisdom passed down through generations. A bird was not simply a bird, it was the soul rising. A serpent was not simply a serpent, it was the cycle of renewal, death, and rebirth. Now imagine the temple alive. Centuries ago, torches flickered along its walls, casting shadows that made the carvings seem to move. Priests walked barefoot across the polished stone, their chants weaving into the air like threads of sound. Smoke from incense curled upward toward the open roof, where the first stars of the night blinked awake. The people who gathered here did not come merely to pray. They came to listen. They believed that if they were quiet enough, if their hearts were still enough, the universe itself would answer, and perhaps it did. For above them, constellations aligned with the temple's corridors, beams of starlight sliding through cracks to strike an altar, exactly on the solstice. To them, this was not coincidence. It was proof of connection, that the temple was a bridge between earth and sky, a place where dreams and reality touched. You walk deeper now, guided by imagination. Your steps slow upon the smooth floor. The walls seem to hum with memory. If you place your hand upon the stone, you might almost feel its pulse, the vibration of centuries of whispered prayers absorbed into its surface. The carvings appear clearer, and you realize they tell a story of beginnings, of mankind learning to look upward, of gods walking among mortals, of stars falling and rising again. Somewhere in the heart of the temple lies the chamber of dreams. Here, priests once slept to seek visions. They believed that dreams in such a sacred place carried truths, messages from the heavens. They would lie upon simple mats, close their eyes, and let the night guide them. In the morning, they would awaken with stories that shaped the lives of their people. When to sow seeds, when to journey, when to prepare for change. Now, As you imagine yourself lying upon that same stone floor, you feel the gentle pull of drowsiness. The temple cradles you like a vast hand, its silence deep but comforting. The stars above peek through small openings, casting silver pools of light that drift across your body as if blessing you. Slowly, the carvings on the walls blur, shifting into patterns that echo behind your eyelids. You dream, and in this dream, the temple is alive again. The walls are fresh with color, painted with vibrant reds and golds. Priests move gracefully, their robes whispering across the floor. The stars above seem larger, nearer, their glow so bright that it spills into the chamber. You hear a voice, soft as the wind, speaking not in words, but in feelings. It tells you that you are part of this story, that the same stars guiding the ancients now guide you. When you stir awake, the dream lingers. The temple is silent again, worn by time, but the message remains. The stones are not empty. They hold the memory of every dreamer who ever lay here, of every question whispered to the stars, of every answer felt in the quiet of sleep. And so, you realize something profound. You are not only resting in the temple, you are continuing its purpose. By lying beneath its stones and listening to its silence, you become part of the endless chain of dreamers. The builders, the priests, the wanderers, the kings, the forgotten, they are all with you here. Together, you are bound not by time but by the eternal dome of the night sky. The carvings on the wall seem to glow faintly now, as though responding to your presence. A bird lifts its wings, caught in a shaft of starlight. A serpent curves into shadow, its head illuminated like a flame. The sun symbol appears to shimmer, its rays stretching outward, reminding you of the warmth that will return when dawn breaks. The temple does not ask for worship. It asks only for presence. For you to be here, breathing softly, open to the vastness of the universe. And as you rest, your heart slows, your mind quiets, and the world beyond these walls drifts away. In this moment, you are no longer separate from the temple. You are part of its story, part of its silence, part of its dream. And above you, the stars continue their eternal watch, shining as they always have, as they always will. So let the night deepen, let the dreams come, let the whispers of the stones lull you. You are safe here. You are timeless here. You are home beneath the celestial dome. The night is vast, unbroken, and tender. Above you, the stars seem endless, yet each one glimmers with purpose, as though every flicker were meant for a single pair of eyes that dares to gaze long enough. In the forgotten temple, the stillness has deepened, and it feels as though the building itself has fallen into a kind of slumber. Its stones resting, its carvings breathing quietly, its silence becoming a lullaby. And yet, though the temple sleeps, it also watches. For these structures were not only places of stone and shadow, they were watchers, guardians of memory, silent keepers of the stories etched into the night sky. To the ancients, the temple and the stars were inseparable. One mirrored the other. The sky was a temple of fire, and the temple was a reflection of the sky. Imagine lying beneath its open courtyard centuries ago. The night stretched endlessly, the sky burning with constellations. Priests, travelers, and children alike would lift their eyes, searching not just for beauty, but for guidance. To them, the stars were living beings, eternal watchers who never closed their eyes. They were patient, faithful, and impossibly far, yet somehow always near. The ancients gave them names, gave them stories, gave them meaning. To gaze upon the night was never to look at cold emptiness. It was to see gods, heroes, ancestors, and animals written in fire. Each constellation was a chapter in the world's great book, a story retold every time the night unveiled itself. There was comfort in this ritual. When crops failed, the stars still rose. When empires crumbled, the stars remained unchanged. When life seemed fleeting, the stars whispered of eternity. They were reminders that above the chaos of earth, there existed an order, steady and vast, something to believe in when all else faltered. You breathe slowly, listening to this silence. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of stone and night-blooming flowers. Somewhere in the distance, water trickles over rock, its rhythm steady as a heartbeat. Every sound, every texture seems magnified, softened into a pattern that lulls you deeper into rest. And as you drift, your thoughts turn toward those who lived long before you. Men and women who looked at these same stars. A mother soothing her child beneath the constellations. A sailor charting his path across black waters. A shepherd lying in the grass, whispering wishes to Orion. A king pacing the temple floor, searching for signs of favor in the heavens. They are gone now, their names forgotten, their voices vanished into time. Yet the stars they looked upon are the same that shine above you. The stars have outlasted them, just as they will outlast us, holding their silent vigil forever. Perhaps that is why they were called eternal watchers, not because they judged, nor because they interfered, but because they remained. They endured. They were the constant companions of humanity, present at every beginning and every ending, present in every dream and every farewell. The temple, too, reflects this constancy. Its walls may have weathered, its carvings may have faded, but it remains standing. It continues to catch the starlight, to hold the silence, to cradle the dreams of those who lie within its embrace. It has become a watcher itself, a monument that listens when no one else can. Now imagine closing your eyes. The starlight still paints your skin, but your inner vision opens wider. You see the constellations, not as distant lights, but as companions, luminous beings who bend close, whispering softly in a language you feel, rather than hear. They tell you that you are not alone, that you are a thread woven into the same fabric as they. You are connected, your breath, your heartbeat, your very dreams tied to theirs, in the quiet loom of eternity. You sink deeper into this realization, and the heaviness of sleep pulls gently at you. The stars do not resist your descent. They encourage it. They have guided countless dreamers before, and they will guide countless more after. Tonight, you are their guest, and they watch over you with a tenderness that needs no words. The forgotten temple becomes softer now in your imagination. Its walls blur, its edges dissolve, until it feels less like a building of stone and more like a vessel, a cradle carrying you through the night. The carvings hum faintly, their symbols glowing in rhythm with your breath. The stars lean closer, their light settling upon you like the gentlest of blankets. And as you rest, you realize that the temple, the stars, and your own dreaming spirit are not separate at all. They are one, each reflecting the other, each holding a part of the same endless story. You are not merely lying in a temple beneath the sky. You are lying within the very heart of the universe itself. The eternal watchers above you twinkle, patient and kind. They do not demand. They do not hurry. They simply remain, steady in their vigil, eternal in their care. And as your body drifts further into rest, your soul finds peace in the knowledge that you, too, are part of this eternity. The night continues, vast and unbroken, and you, under the care of the eternal watchers, drift deeper and deeper into the most peaceful of slumbers. Far away, in the lush valleys where mountains kiss the horizon, other sacred sites echoed the same silent vigil as the desert temples. Carved into the rock or nestled among emerald forests, these sanctuaries were linked not by geography, but by intention, the universal desire to align with the heavens. Each culture, though unique in its symbols and rituals, seemed to reach upward in unison, yearning for connection to the infinite sky. The Mayans, deep in the jungles of Mesoamerica, constructed towering pyramids whose steps aligned with the sun's cycle. On equinox days, a serpent of light slithered down the side of El Castillo in Chichen Itza, as though the gods themselves descended to walk among mortals. At night, those same temples mirrored the Milky Way above, reminding all who gazed upon them that humanity's story was never separate from the stars. Meanwhile, in the Scottish Highlands, the stones of Callanish stood silent, arranged in lines that reached out like arms to the moon's long cycle. Villagers gathered in the mist, their breaths forming clouds in the cold air as they awaited the moon's rare dance across the stones, a celestial performance that unfolded only once in a generation. To stand among those stones was to feel the patience of the universe itself. And so, from deserts to jungles to wind-swept plains, the earth was dotted with markers, temples, stones, and monuments that functioned like eyes. Always gazing upward, they watched the skies not out of idle curiosity, but out of reverence. They were reminders that sleep, dreams, and the passage of time were all woven into the rhythm of the cosmos. When night fell, people in these lands would lie upon woven mats, furs, or simple straw, and look upward before closing their eyes. They knew that while they slept, the heavens continued their eternal journey. Stars drifted, constellations rotated, and the moon carved its silver path. The temples watched, the stones stood guard, and humanity dreamed. Dreams that often felt like messages from the very sky above. As you drift now, imagine yourself among them. You walk through a stone circle on a misty hill, then find yourself in a jungle clearing, beneath a pyramid, and then again in a desert temple where shadows stretch endlessly. Each place feels familiar, as though you have been here before. Perhaps you have. Perhaps your spirit has always been part of this great, watchful vigil. And so, the forgotten temples, though silent, speak to you through sensation. The cool stone beneath your fingertips, the echo of a distant drum carried on the wind, the scent of earth and incense. These impressions linger as you sink deeper into rest, knowing that the same stars guiding your ancestors are guiding you still, beyond the mountains and deserts, across seas that shimmered like liquid glass beneath the moonlight. There were islands where temples too, stretched their gaze upward. On Easter Island, the great Moai statues stood with solemn faces, their massive stone eyes fixed upon horizons where sky met ocean. Though many believe they watched over the people, others whisper that their gaze reached further still, toward the stars that govern tide and time. Seafarers of the Pacific relied on the heavens more intimately than any other. Without maps of parchment or compasses of metal, they charted their voyages by reading the constellations like sacred texts. In their temples, rituals honored the stars as guides and protectors, for to sleep at sea was to trust that the universe itself would cradle their journey. Lulled by waves, sailors closed their eyes beneath vast skies, and in their dreams, celestial maps unfolded. Far to the north, under colder skies, the Norse raised wooden halls, where runes and carvings echoed their connection to the night. They told stories of Yggdrasil, the great cosmic tree linking the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. To lie by a flickering fire in those halls was to drift into dreams where one might climb that tree and glimpse the shimmering bridge of Bifrost, arching like the Milky Way across the heavens. Even in lands where temples no longer stand, their memory lingers. Whispers of firelit ceremonies, of chanting voices beneath constellations, of offerings laid out for the moon, all echo in the silence of ruins. The stones may crumble, but the purpose remains. Humanity has always reached upward, seeking in the night sky the answers hidden within dreams. As you rest now, imagine lying at the edge of one of these sacred places. The cool night air brushes your skin, carrying the scent of grass, incense, or salt from the sea. Above, the stars sparkle with infinite patience, steady and eternal. The temple, the statue, or the circle of stones stands nearby, silent but not empty. It watches for you. It keeps vigil while you sleep. And so, as your breath deepens, you too join this ancient rhythm, the pulse of the stars, the slow dance of the planets, the hush of temples, forgotten yet eternal. Every heartbeat carries you deeper into dreams, just as it carried those before you. And in the space between waking and sleeping, you find yourself held by the same timeless guardians who have watched the sky since the beginning. High in the mountains of the Andes, ancient builders raised temples where the thin air shimmered with starlight. At Machu Picchu, walls and windows were aligned not only with the rising of the sun, but also with the delicate pathways traced by stars. To sleep beneath such a sky was to feel as though the universe itself leaned closer, whispering its mysteries into the ears of those who dared to listen. The Incas spoke of constellations, not as distant shapes, but as living beings, woven into the fabric of the night. Llamas, serpents, and birds appeared among the black rivers of the Milky Way, reminding all who gazed upward that the heavens were alive, and that life itself was part of their eternal design. Far across the world, in the deserts of Arabia, nomadic tribes lay upon the sands and looked skyward for guidance. The stars were their compass, their calendar, and their companions during long nights of travel. To close their eyes beneath that endless canopy was to rest in the very arms of creation, lulled by the knowledge that every point of light marked a safe path forward. The desert, vast and silent, became a temple without walls, its floor of sand, its roof, a dome of stars. In Africa, beneath skies untouched by modern light, great kingdoms once raised shrines where priests and astronomers marked the dance of the heavens. The Dogon people spoke of stars invisible to the eye, their knowledge passing down in secret rituals. Imagine drifting to sleep as such stories were told, each word carrying the weight of hidden knowledge, each pause leaving space for dreams to bloom. And in every culture, no matter how distant in land or time, the pattern is the same. Humanity gazed upward, found order in the chaos, and laid stones or carved wood to honor what they saw. Whether through pyramids, stone circles, or whispered myths, all pointed back to the stars, the shared map of our journey. Tonight, as you lie here, your breath steady and calm, you too join this timeless act. You rest beneath the same sky as they once did. The stars above you are the same stars that guided ships, marked harvests, and inspired myths. Close your eyes and feel the weight of history lighten into wonder. The temples may fade, the languages may be lost, but the sky remains, always watching, always waiting, always ready to carry you gently into dreams. The journey is nearly complete now. We have walked with forgotten priests, sailed with ancient mariners, and stood beneath temples carved for the heavens. Yet even as centuries have passed, the stars remain unchanged, silent, patient, eternal. Think of them as guardians, scattered across the black ocean of the night, each one a lantern, lit long before you were born, and glowing still, long after the last stones of empires crumbled into dust. The sailors trusted them, the priests worshipped them, and the dreamers told stories about their gentle shimmer. And now, as you close your eyes, you join that same unbroken chain. A quiet soul lying beneath the same endless canopy. The forgotten temples may have fallen to ruin, their altars swallowed by vines, their towers lost to shifting sands, but the skies they once honored are still above you, unchanged and undimmed. They watch over you now as they watched over them, so breathe slowly, deeply. Let the rhythm of your breath fall in step with the rhythm of the night. Imagine yourself drifting among those stars, floating free, lighter than the softest feather. The world below fades, its noise, its weight, its troubles, until there is only you, the quiet of your heartbeat, and the shimmer of starlight. This is the gift the ancients knew, that when you surrender to the night, you are not lost. You are guided. You are held. You are part of a story written not in words or stone, but in light that travels across eternity. And so, let the eternal watchers carry you now, as they have carried all who came before. Drift away into sleep, safe beneath their glow, and dream as sailors dreamed, as priests dreamed, as all who gazed upward once dreamed. The journey never ends. The stars are forever. Good night.